right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Let me make sure the microphone's okay again. Sorry. I think we're good. Pretty sure we're good. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the stream. Welcome if you are new here. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Generic white male, thank you so much for informing me of that. Payne, no, it's not marathon. It's not marathon. No. Fred, you're saying marathon could be rough out of the gate, and if Bungie takes the feedback of what works and does not work, they can shape it into something good. In the end, it will be up to the devs on what happens. I think that's a fair take, Fred. But I don't know that I fully agree, because I've been spending not the entire time since we finished yesterday's stream, but a pretty good amount of time looking around and listening and going to different places and just trying to overall get some idea of what the general consensus is about Marathon. And we're going to talk extensively about that today. Toolman, I wish, bro. I wish. That would be amazing. No, I am currently playing and reviewing a game right now that, although the timing of me saying this, you're going to think it's something else. Well, right now I'm playing a game that I can't talk about. I wish I could talk about. We will talk about. And man, it's surprising me. I gotta say, like I'm very, very surprised. I'm excited to talk about this game when I'm able to. I think it's going to be one of the biggest games of the year. I do. I think it's going to be one of the biggest games of the year, and I think people are going to be somewhat shocked. I cannot talk about it currently. Yeah, no. It's not GTA 6. Concord 2. Unknown, you keep guessing them. I don't want to say anything more, but I've been kind of teasing it for the past couple of days. I've been playing a game and getting deep into it, and currently, I'm playing it for review, and I'm not going to say whether, I'm not going to say anything else. I'm just saying that I'm looking forward to having a discussion with you guys about that game. You tried to sign up for Marathon's Discord. Anime for Entertainment, a member for 20 months, says, I feel that a PlayStation showcase is very near. Also, Ghost of Yote any time now. Dude, I feel like, yeah, Sony's got to get cooking on that showcase, bro. They got to get cooking on that showcase. Got an NDA? I don't know, do I? I got that GTA 6 NDA, bro. No, it's not that. I really, for the love of God, do not think I'm sitting here secretly playing GTA 6. No chance. That'd be crazy, though. I don't think anybody's playing GTA 6. The only people playing GTA 6 are Rockstar devs, I would assume. Well, I don't know. Did they have playtesters for that game? They probably do, right? You would assume they do, but man, ain't nobody leaking GTA 6. God knows what'll happen. And Michael Lynch with the super chat saying they've got 5 months to work on feedback. I've watched a couple of YouTube videos that give me hope. Yeah, so I have two. But here's what I've learned. Or not what I've learned, but here's my I'm trying to take a wide view here, right? Like I'm trying to zoom out as much as I can and just really figure out where does Marathon stand? What is the general consensus? What's going on, Corey? My take on this, from everything I've looked at and taken in, is that there is a select group of gamers that are excited and enthusiastic about Marathon. Unfortunately, that select group of gamers is not nearly as large as the amount of gamers that are not on board with this game. Whether that be just flat out indifference or just straight up like they're kind of they think it's a joke. The people that are on board with this game from what I can tell, are people who really stick to Bungie through thick and through thin. A lot of people who were there for Destiny are not going to be here for Marathon, even though they do like Bungie, they do like Destiny, or they did like Destiny. They're not going to be here for Marathon because Marathon is not Destiny 3. A lot of people who were there for Bungie with Halo are not going to be here because Marathon is nothing like Halo. Other than the fact it is an FPS. But what I'm realizing is that Bungie painted themselves in a corner with this game, deciding to make it an extraction shooter. And what's worse is that they are not bringing anything new to the table in the extraction shooter genre. So they do have 5 to 6 months, give or take, to get this, get the feedback in. But unfortunately, and I don't want to like call things early, but it's hard not to. I can only put out my current thoughts. It seems to me like Marathon is going to be a game that's going to be around for a short period of time, a shorter period of time. This is not going to be a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year game that supports. This is not going to be on the level of Destiny 2, unfortunately for Bungie and for Sony. And we have Corey the Legend Landiga coming in, dropping a 5-bomb on you guys in the name of. Oh wow, they're both sleeping up there together. Look at them. They're just like knocked out. Corey, thank you so much for that, man.
I'll be back.
Marathon somehow looks unique and generic at the same time. That's an interesting way to describe it. Yeah. Unique and generic at the same time. I think what looks unique about. See, I can agree with that. I think what looks unique about Marathon is the overall art style and the presentation of that art style. What looks generic is everything else. The gameplay, the way it. The worst thing I've seen said about Marathon is not people calling it Concord 2.0, not people being hyperbolic and calling it a dumpster fire and stuff like that. Because I've seen a lot of that. I've seen a lot of people, really making it sound like this was like the worst. Like they were straight up offended at what they just saw. It was the worst piece of junk they've ever seen. I've seen a lot of that, and to me, that's not surprising. I feel like any game that's revealed these days, you get a lot of hyperbole surrounding it. Sometimes it's justified. Most of the time, I'd say it's not. To me, the honest to God worst thing that I've seen said about Marathon so far is coming from the rational, reasonable person who gave this game the time of day to check it out, to watch the trailer, and simply walks away by saying, this just looks like most other games, if not every other multiplayer game that's released in the last like 7 or 8 years. And that, to me, if I were Bungie, is what would shake me the most, where it's like, uh-oh, shit. Because this game has been in development. Oh, hold on. Okay. This game has been in development for like 6, 7 years, something like that. And I think, you can expect it being Bungie, it being an extraction shooter, it being a live service, it being multiplayer. You can expect over the top reactions of people being like, oh my God, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. But when you're talking about, seeing, and I didn't just see it from 1 or 2 people, I'm like across the board. A lot of reactions I've seen from people is like, this just looks like something I've seen like 10 times over. And the only thing that maybe they give it is that the color palette and the art style is slightly different. But as a game, it looks like something I played like 10 times in the last, 6 years. And I think that's really concerning for Marathon because I fear that that's the general consensus. That right there. I don't think the general consensus is that this is the worst thing ever made and it looks like pure trash. I don't think the general consensus is this is going to be great and I can't wait to play. The general consensus, from what I can tell after looking around, scouring the internet all around, is it just doesn't look that interesting. It's not doing anything to make me feel excited to play it. It just looks like many other games I've seen. And it's made worse by the fact that people are also adding on to that this is Bungie. a legendary development team, a developer that always redefines some type of genre when they enter it, whether it be with Halo or Destiny. And, I'm just not seeing that at all. And so, we're gonna have a lot more to say, but we have Easy Tone here. He says it would be great if we reacted to Skill Up and Luke Stevens' hands-on videos of Marathon. Both were really good and at talking positives and concerns. Yeah, maybe we could check those out later on. I did watch a little bit of Skill Ups, just a little bit. Didn't come across Luke Stevens. I was actually looking into specifically, and I know Skill Up he was like a Destiny player, but other Destiny players as well as extraction shooter, like streamers, and it's interesting, man, because it seems like I'm not gonna lie to you. It seems like there is some level of forced positivity here, um, where I'm getting this feeling that people like there are certain people who are trying to make it seem like this game is actually really, 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 really good. And I think in reality, everybody's looking at it and they're like, it just looks okay. It looks decent to good, right? Like it's not like I think that I think basically what I'm trying to say is I think that there are some people out there, and this makes sense, that want this to be the next big thing. Like they want this to be something that is gonna blow up and be, the next big live service that everybody's jumping on. And I get that, but I think when I hear people kind of have that stance and have that take, I'm like, that's not gonna happen. Like I don't think anybody is seeing that, even with the raw gameplay. And I did watch some more raw gameplay. I will say the gameplay did look a lot better uncompressed, or like watching it in 4K. I'm like, okay, it's a lot easier to see what's going on, and not everything's pixelated. And the game does look very unique. It does, and in terms of just the color palette and the overall art style. I will say that is something that Bungie really leaned into, and it's working well for it. Although that seems to be a bit divisive, where I am seeing a fair amount of people saying that they don't like how the game looks. So everything about this game seems to be in the middle. It's right down the middle, where like you got people who like it and are like, this is good, and you got people who are like, I don't like this. Bungie, what happened? And I don't know. I guess it is a little bit surprising when you consider Bungie's past successes. I feel like with Halo and with Destiny, that's not the way people reacted to those games. I mean, I remember, especially with Destiny, like that's not how people reacted to Destiny. The reaction I'm seeing with Marathon is not something I've seen in the past with Bungie. I think this is a first. I didn't know Boss woke up. He's like loudly licking himself, like, bro. He's like, well, time for work. I'm a little late. Austin Garrett, a member for 15 months, says, when I saw the cinematic reveal, I thought, oh, this looks crazy. Like Kojima Crazy World, story and gameplay. Then I saw the gameplay and was like, yeah. I mean, something else I've been seeing a lot of people pointing out with Marathon that I find, if I were Sony and if I were Bungie, I would be like, maybe a bit of a facepalm here. Is like, is there a single player? Like, wait, you're telling me there's no single player? Because it's so true that like many of these live service games, they set up, they're setting up this world. They're building this world out. They are creating these unique characters and all this stuff. Even with Concord, dude. Even with Concord, I saw people saying I would give this a chance if there was single player, if there's some kind of single player story here that I could play. And I've been seeing a ton of people saying that with Marathon, where they're like, wait, there's like no single player whatsoever. It's like, no, this is a PvE game. Like it's only multiplayer. And I feel like, you see Sony trying to kind of push Marathon. Understandably, Sony owns Bungie now. And this is again, they paid 3.6 billion for Bungie. You see Sony pushing this game, and it's like, yeah, the reaction from like the PlayStation side of things, like, because again, I was looking at the extraction shooter streamer side, I'm looking at the Bungie player side, but I'm especially looking at the PlayStation side of things. And on the PlayStation side of things, this, I'll be honest, like Sony, this is not what PlayStation gamers are asking for. I'm not trying to speak for all PlayStation gamers. I'm sure there are PlayStation gamers who are going to play this and may end up liking it. But generally speaking, like this game being owned by Sony, like this game is not speaking to the PlayStation fan base. You know? Dark Cloud, bro, why, like, do you want to get banned? Because I can make that happen. I mean, it's low, it's bait, dude. And maybe, I'm validating it, but it's like, what are you talking about? What, like I'm serious, bro. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I can't even tell if it's serious or not. That's the only reason that's why I'm not getting rid of it, because I can't tell if it's sarcasm or not, man. Is it a genuine troll or is it sarcasm? Boss. All right. We have Lux saying Sony must have been Let me try this again. Sony must have been smoking crack when they bought Bungie. Terrible decision by them. Maybe they should see if Tencent is interested in them. I'll be honest, man. No, unfortunately, it ends with Sony. Bungie ends with Sony, dude. Like, nobody's going to touch Bungie again. After Sony acquired Bungie, and it was revealed, like, the financial devastation that ensued because of Bungie's mismanagement of their funds and their resources, nobody's going to buy Bungie. And that's what's crazy is if Marathon fails, Bungie's going to get completely absorbed by Sony, from my understanding. If Marathon doesn't really hit a high mark, which I don't think it's going to, I think Bungie's going to get completely absorbed by Sony. Well, that's the thing. Sony kind of already did take over to a degree. Like, I think Sony is now in charge from they basically are part of Bungie's board now. But I think if Marathon is toast, if Marathon is already cooked, then once it's out, if it fails to gain any meaningful traction, I think at that point, like, Bungie gets completely folded in to PlayStation Studios. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of already happened to a degree. A whole team that was working at Bungie has been folded into PlayStation Studios. So I don't know. I don't know if, like, what we're seeing with Bungie, what's left of Bungie is just Sony being like, you're on your own. Like, we won't shut you down. We'll give you the chance, but you're on your own. And anything we think that's valuable that you guys have, we're bringing it in-house. Basically, I'm wondering if Sony's leaving Bungie out to dry. Would I pay for Marathon? If it was like 40, well, first off, I want to talk more about how interested I actually am in playing this game. But assuming that I'm actually excited to play it, $40 I think could work. Maybe I paid $40 for Helldivers 2 and didn't regret it. But my interest level in Marathon compared to Helldivers 2 is much, much lower. Nakamichi says it doesn't help that competitive FPS games is an oversaturated market. Fortnite and Apex killed any hope of BR/extraction shooters succeeding. Well, that's something else that I want to mention here, Nakamichi. Okay, boss, we go through this every day. I'm not trying to be rude to you, boss, but there is not enough room. You're going to knock everything over. Come on. Come on. Come on. Go. Nakamichi, that's another thing. Many of the reactions that I've seen from people regarding Marathon are simply, this looks like it was supposed to come out like 6 years ago. Like, maybe this would have succeeded 6 years ago. 5 years ago. And I will say that's a similar thing that's a commonality between Marathon and Concord that I can say exists. Is one of the big things that people were saying when Concord was revealed and Sony was trying to hype it up as the next big thing. People were like, "Bro, that you're not just a day, you're like multiple years late and many dollars short." You know? Like this is something that should have been ready to go years ago. Years ago. Make some room, human. I Boss, I would love for you to be here more, but he's too reckless, dude. But I've been seeing people say that. I've been seeing people point out that it's like, you know, the extraction shooter the extraction shooter genre is fine. Like it's a genre that I think people still certainly engage with. But remember when I told you guys that like 5-6 years ago, many developers in the industry, many publishers in the industry thought that the extraction shooter genre was going to be the next battle royale. And that never happened. The extraction shooter genre never took off the way that it was supposed to. It found an audience, but that audience remained relatively niche. And, I've been seeing people say that, well, maybe Bungie's going to be the first one to really, like skyrocket the genre. And it's like, I'm seeing what people are saying after seeing the gameplay, raw gameplay. That's not happening. That's like, unless Bungie decides to scrap it and make a completely different game, that's not happening. I think it will find an audience, but I think that audience is going to be small. To be completely honest, I think Bungie's going to find the smallest audience they've ever had. This audience is not going to be as big as the audience that was there for Halo. This audience is not going to be as big as the audience that was there for Destiny. And I think that's going to be a big problem. That's going to be a big problem, I think, at the end of the day. Lux, you're saying, why would they pay $3 billion to leave them out to dry, make Sony look stupid? The buck stops with Sony no matter how much freedom they give Bungie. I do agree with that. Like, no matter what happens, the buck does stop with Sony because that's what they paid for. They paid for that accountability, The reason why I think they might be doing that is because, well, we have to consider something here, right? Like, I've seen a lot of people saying that this game is going to fail. Like this game is going to be a failure. Just no doubt about it, right? And that makes me nervous because I am seeing similar. I'm trying to think of how to word this without making it sound ridiculous. When Concord was revealed, everybody said this game's going to fail. And I came across for every 100 people. No. Like every 1,000 people, one person being like, maybe it'll be okay. Maybe it can be good. But generally speaking, for all intents and purposes, everybody said Concord was going to fail. And everybody was completely right. And Sony didn't see that. Sony didn't see that. They were blindsided by its failure. What Firewalk and what Sony didn't have is a built-in fan base. Like Sony, I think, at the very least, thought to themselves, well, we have millions of PlayStation fans. Even the most hardcore, loyal PlayStation fan will support this game. So we can at least fall back on that. We'll have something. And even even PlayStation fans were like, no, dude, nobody's touching this. You don't have us. And what's interesting is when I look at Marathon and I compare it, right? The reaction to Marathon, the only thing that's different about it compared to Concord in terms of just the general consensus and the way people are talking about it on the internet is that Marathon do have a built-in fan base that no matter what is willing to be there at launch. There are Bungie loyalists and enthusiasts who will be there at launch, and Bungie knows that. And that's better. Like, that to me is what automatically gives Marathon a better chance than Concord. But what frightens me, and I think what should frighten Sony, is that outside of that, and this is kind of what I was mentioning earlier, outside of that, I'm not seeing that. Like, outside of the Bungie loyalist and the Bungie enthusiast, or the extraction shooter enthusiast who's always ready to try the next extraction shooter, outside of those audiences, I'm not seeing anybody talk positively about this game. I'm seeing people talk negatively. So I think Bungie's going to be reduced to just having a live service game that has a very small audience. SOCOM Survival should be impending, but nope. I mean, dude, this is another thing that it's frustrating. Like, I'm not trying to make this a rant session about Sony, because I feel like people they're getting tired. Like, it's always ranting about Sony these days, but it's just like Sony has to put more faith in some better shit, dude. Like, I don't know how else to put it. Like, yeah, we are at this point where it's like, Sony, you pay $3.6 billion for Bungie. You give Concord the time of day. You give Concord everything. You give Bungie everything for Marathon. And, like, you know, games like IP like SOCOM, IP like Killzone, IP like Resistance, IP like even Warhawk, for God's sake. You know, like any one of these things that has just an ounce of nostalgia behind it, that I assure you would have at least some type of built-in fan base. Sony's just like, what even is that? Wait, we own that? You know, it's like, when are they gonna? Now, granted, I understand when I say this that Sony can't just snap their fingers and make these games appear. What we are seeing now has been years in the making. You know, for all we know, Sony behind the scenes knows this game is going to struggle, and they're prepared for that. We don't know how they really feel about Marathon. You know, all I do know is that you're seeing now more than ever people waking up to the realization that Sony is trying to carve something out in the multiplayer space, in the live service space. And fans are begging for Sony to do something that's not this. That's not Concord. You know? Something closer to Helldivers, right? And I'm not saying that Sony should just listen to what every fan has to say and just throw every new idea in the garbage. But the reality is, Marathon's not a new idea. Marathon is an IP that Bungie revived, and they said, let's make it an extraction shooter. Nothing about that's original. And anybody who believes it is kidding themselves. And it's okay. It doesn't mean it's automatically bad because it's not original, but it's just like, I'm just trying to point out that if you try to like bring that in as a defense of it, you know, it's like, that's not it's not a defense. It's got to be, it's doing very unoriginal things. How's it going to stand out? How's it going to convince people to stop playing Fortnite, to stop playing Call of Duty, to stop playing Overwatch, to stop playing Apex, whatever they're playing, to go play this? How is that going to work? Lux, you're saying Sony buys Bungie for their live service expertise to then shuttle them to, I don't know if you meant to say shutter them, to shuttle them and take control when Sony themselves don't know what to do with live service. And then you're saying, how would Killzone or SOCOM change live service? Well, the thing is, I'm not saying that a new Killzone live service or a new SOCOM live service, I'm not saying these games would automatically be successful. I'm just saying that what I do know for a fact, as long as they didn't do something stupid with it and make it like some kind of cartoonish art style, if Sony came out and said, we're reviving SOCOM and we're planning on making a live service, you're going to see a very vocal portion, maybe not the largest portion, but a vocal portion of PlayStation's fan base express the utmost enthusiasm for that and be there day one. And here's the thing. if Sony came out and just made like a gritty third-person tactical shooter live service, and it was actually well made, right? Not something that's just like half-assed in front of the game, but something that's well made, I guarantee you, I promise you, that will find more success than probably Marathon and Concord. I I'm not saying it'll be the number one game. I'm not saying it'll blow up and be the next big game. I would never promise that for any live service because who the hell knows? But I assure you that that has a better chance of finding some level of success. Because you know what I know? Is that if that's what we saw yesterday, an hour-long presentation about the revival of SOCOM, got a gritty third-person tactical shooter, going back to the fundamentals of what made SOCOM great, but, obviously in a contemporary way. I'd love to, I'm telling you, I don't think you would see people being out here being like, this looks like fucking like a dumpster fire. This looks like trash. This looks like some, the same game I've been playing for the last like 10 years. I'm telling you, I just don't think you're going to see those responses. I think you're going to see people be like, oh shit, Sony's actually making a game that we might play. Like a multiplayer game that we might play, that we might be interested in playing. I have this gut feeling. And that gut feeling, it's not just coming out of nowhere. I'm reading what people are saying. I'm reading what people are asking for. And it's just like, Sony, why are you not seeing this? Now, again, I'm going to take a step back. Maybe they are seeing it, but it's just like, guys, we can't just fucking snap our fingers and make a SOCOM game appear. So I get that. Maybe it's going to take time for the message to be relayed, for them to do something about it. But I just feel like it's pretty obvious at this point that like whatever Sony's original idea was for a live service, like we need fair games and we need the most diverse lineup of games out there. Like, no, what you need to do is just you need to get back to the basics of what it is that you need to provide your fan base. Because I assure you, the PlayStation fan base is not asking for a highly stylized extraction shooter. You know what the fan base was asking for? And I'm not even talking about the entire fan base. A lot of people just flat out will tell you, Sony, we don't want live service. Sony's going to ignore those people because Sony feels like they have to pursue live service. But for the people who are interested in live service games from Sony, you know what they were asking for? Yeah, they were asking for a new Twisted Metal. Not sure that they wanted it to be live service, but I assure you, people would have been more willing to give that a chance than this. You would have at least seen PlayStation players express some kind of excitement. So, listen, I don't want to keep going on and get nowhere with it. Ultimately, I think what we are witnessing is just how disconnected the Bungie purchase truly was, where it's like, I'm not really sure how Sony thought this was going to benefit them. I understand on paper, Jim Ryan had this idea where it's like, Bungie's going to share their expertise. Like, our studios don't know how to make shit when it comes to live service. So Bungie's going to share their expertise. And it turns out, apparently, Naughty Dog made an awesome game, which I'm not surprised. Naughty Dog apparently made an awesome live service Last of Us game, and they just kind of realized at the end of the day, like, wait a second, we don't want to do this. Like, and it's just like, I don't know, man. Something's got to give here. Something's got to give. Like, I just can't. All right, this is where I'm going to start leaning more into rant territory, and I can't help it. I just can't believe we're sitting here almost a year later. This is almost like exactly 1 year from, I think, Concord's like gameplay reveal or whatever. And I don't know if it's like the PTSD from Concord. Like maybe I am traumatized or something. I'm going to read the super chat. So just got to get this out. But it's like, how are we still here? Like, why am I seeing Concord trending on fucking Twitter in April of 2025, bro? Like, why are we still here? SOCOM wouldn't be interesting either. Okay, listen. I can actually agree that I don't know that SOCOM would be more interesting. Because I don't want to sit here and make it sound like SOCOM would be revolutionary. SOCOM would be so original. It wouldn't be those things, but you know what it would be? It would be a breath of fresh air and like, oh, something something a bit grittier, something a bit more grounded, something like Sony filling in a gap that needs to be filled in when it comes to their portfolio. And I understand that Sony might think to themselves, well, we don't have an extraction shooter. We don't have a really successful first person shooter either. And that's those two things are very true. And I'm trying to like get in the mind of like Herman Holst or somebody at Sony where it's like, yeah, I get it. Like this could fill out your portfolio, but it's like I think you have to take into consideration your actual fan base. And this is where being somewhat in touch with your fan base, I think is critical, where it's like if you had two options here, either a really highly stylized neon FPS extraction shooter or a grounded, gritty, tactical shooter, or hell, maybe you could even make SOCOM a freaking extraction shooter somehow, but something grounded, something grittier, something a bit more, mil sim, if you like military sim, right? If you had to gauge like which one of those two games is going to appeal more so to your built-in install base and fan base, I'm telling you, it doesn't take a genius or a rocket scientist to surmise that probably the grounded, grittier milsim type game. Nobody's going to look at that and say how revolutionary, how original. But people will look at that and say, actually, I might play that. When you see people's reactions to Marathon, there's just so many people being like, "Who asked for this?" That's a great question. I'm not sure. Well, Chris. Okay, I will say you're calling me out on this one. I agree. I absolutely agree. You're saying people would be pissed if they turned SOCOM into an extraction shooter. I agree. I'm not going to sit here and pretend people wouldn't be losing their shit. They would be, but maybe people would come around. you know, like, well, it's better than nothing. It's better than Marathon. I don't know. Lux, you're saying here, but Sony want games for the masses, not the diehards, and that's true, and I get that. I understand that they probably think to themselves like, I feel like Sony's they are thinking like, how do we get the Fortnite player or the you know the PUBG player or the Call of Duty player or I mean, actually they must not be thinking that. Let me turn that around. Sony must not be thinking that, because if they were thinking that, they would make games that are kind of similar to that, but better in their mind, right? And that's not what they're doing. I don't know. I don't know, man. Like, maybe the only reason Marathon is still coming is because Sony couldn't actually cancel it or something. I don't know. Like, contractually, like there's some kind of clause where Bungie's protected. I don't know. What I do know is that I'm getting PTSD flashbacks of Concord a year later after Concord was like formally revealed. And I don't know how we're here. And it's just making me not feel great. That's why I put in the title like PlayStation single player focus, because it's like, thank God they still have a focus on single player, and they didn't go all in. I mean, literally all in with live service, because as much as I want to be a little bit disappointed and concerned about Marathon, at the end of the day, I'm going to be playing Death Stranding 2 in June. And that matters to me way fucking more than the outcome of Marathon, ultimately. But I guess it's just that there is a part of me that can't deny I do want more multiplayer games from Sony. I do want more. I want to see more games succeed for Sony, like Helldivers 2. It's just a frustrating ass process when it's like, God, like what? Like why? Who thought this was it, man? Like I don't understand how it's like, do they not? It's not literally PTSD, Dark Cloud. I mean, maybe I shouldn't use that terminology. I mean, I'm not trying to be too like PC or anything, but like, you get what I'm saying. Fred says, Mrs. MBG, bring him the pickleballs to calm him down. We got a super chat from Easy Tone. And he says, as you said before, Sony doesn't use its IP like Nintendo. And the one time they have, Astrobot and won Game of the Year. Do you think that woke Sony up? Yeah, I don't know. Sony's still a mystery somehow. They're an enigma. I can't quite figure them out. Chris Brown, you're saying, showed my 13-year-old nephew Marathon, instantly said lame. Oh my God. Yikes. Chris, genuine question. What do you think your 13-year-old nephew would think if instead it was like a new SOCOM? Would they still say, I mean, they could very well still say lame, but do you think it would have been just as immediate? You know? You think it would have been the same? I mean, listen, man, I'm not going to blow smoke up Sony's ass and try to convince them that you can compete with Call of Duty. I'm not going to say that. That's not true. But what I will say is that one of the biggest things I see people complaining about with Call of Duty in the year 2025 is how ridiculous it's gotten, where it's everything's silly and over the top. Like, I think they just announced like Jay and Silent Bob or whatever. Like, they had the Ninja Turtles in the game like a couple months ago or something. And people they've been upset. Call of Duty players have been upset for a very long time that they feel like Call of Duty's gotten completely away from. He would say he'd rather play Siege. He has no attachment to Sony IP. He uses PC. Okay, interesting. People are saying this about Call of Duty. They've been saying it for a long time, and I'm like, this is where I feel like Sony could capitalize on an opportunity where it's like there's an audience out there that wants a shooter that is somewhat similar to Call of Duty, right? That has those same sensibilities, but is not going off the rails, making things nonsensical and ridiculous and staying more milsim, right? And I again, that's where I'm just like, I mean, it's just, you got the IP SOCOM right there. You could serve that audience. I'm not saying you're going to compete with Call of Duty. You'd be stupid to think you could compete with Call of Duty. What I'm saying is you could end up making some kind of successful live service military shooter that does well enough for you guys, and you can serve a specific audience. I understand that that's very focused and that's not bigger picture thinking. Like, but how do we get in the top 10 most played live service games? It's like that's where I think Sony is the lesson was hard learned, that Sony never once thought for a moment that Helldivers 2 would ever be a top 10 live service game. And it like shot up almost to the top when it first came out. And that's where it's just like Helldivers, like if you ask Arrowhead, what went into making Helldivers 2, they literally said that they were trying to appeal to the more hardcore gamer. Like they went in the opposite direction, and that's the game that blew up. I mean, the message has been delivered, like the message has been delivered. All right, we have Scoop Ball 420 saying this is more on gamers never being satisfied. It stops people from playing other games by being a good game, which it could. I don't know that I fully understand. Hold on. This is more on gamers never being satisfied. It stops people from playing other games by being a good game. If I'm understanding what you're saying correctly, Scoopball, are you kind of saying that basically if a good game gets a negative aura around it, it doesn't matter? Like people are just going to avoid it because it's got like a stink on it? that the internet labeled it. Is that kind of what you mean? I don't know if I'm reading it correctly. But MBG, you were a general in the console war. Your side won. These are the fruits of your victory. Enjoy. Damn it. Victory, but at what cost? Don't you dare blame gamers. No, in my opinion, you can't blame gamers. The reason being is because I don't think, I mean, there's no denying that gamers to a degree are a bit fickle, and that's normal. The consumer is pretty fickle overall. But there's ample evidence out there. Like if you're a developer, if you're a publisher, there's more than enough evidence out there. Like, all right. God. Oh, I want to talk about this so bad. I'm not. All right. I'll just say that I gotta be careful how we word this. I've recently. All right. Well, let me take a step back. Developers are seeing now more than ever other developers beating the odds, overcoming the odds. Basically, like, well, if you want to have a successful game, it's got to be AAA, and you got to have at least 100 plus people working on it, and it's got to be a budget of 150 million plus, and that's what you need. It's got to be go big or go home, and that applies to not just single player games, but live service games as well. And I feel like in going big inherently is not problematic. Going big when there's not enough substance does matter. And that is the biggest recipe, the easiest recipe for failure. Concord is the definition of going big with no substance. Marathon, unfortunately, I think is kind of following a little bit in that it has much more substance, but it's still like, I mean, looking deeper than just surface level, it becomes clear that, okay, it has substance, but not that much. It's still kind of just replicating. And it's a tough thing because in some cases it works. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say that replicating something that came before you, I'm not going to say that doesn't work. It can work, but it's just, this is where I feel like developers and specifically publishers are more to blame than the gamer. Because it's like, it's your job to look around. It's your job to look around and figure out like what audience needs to be served right now. Like not right now. See, that's where this is their job. They have to have enough foresight. Look at what's big right now. Right? Look at what's big right now. Look at what has the biggest audiences right now and ask yourself, is that audience going to be asking for the same thing 5 years from now? And if not, ask yourself, what might they be interested in looking for 5 years from now? And if you don't have an answer to that question, then you know what the next best thing you can do is, and maybe this is ultimately the best thing that any development team can do. Make what you want then. Make what you think is going to be good. Because that works too. Saying, fuck it, we're not trying to appeal to the masses. We're just going to make a game that we think is good, and we hope other people enjoy it too. I don't know, man. I feel like Sony is I think Sony's out of their depth with live service. I do. I don't think, I think Sony's too shook. I think they're too shook, man. I think they realize that they got super lucky with Helldivers 2. They realize that they have no idea what they're doing with Concord and Bungie. And I think that they're just flat out shook where it's like they don't know what to do. And Yeah, I don't know why it has to be this difficult, but they're shooketh. All right, let me catch up with these super chats. I'm sorry to keep you guys waiting. Nakamichi, you're saying if SOCOM came back, it would be like the 2010 FPS game and not not more tactical like the first game. I I can agree with that. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a mistake that they could potentially make. Where again, it's like we got to make it less hardcore. Um, and I think a lot of times that works against these games. What's sad about the last SOCOM game is I feel like it never really got a chance. It would have been interesting to see what would have happened to that game because if I recall correctly, the PlayStation Network hack of like 2011 happened at almost the exact same time that game came out, and the multiplayer aspect of that game was, half the reason why people bought it, if not more than half the reason. And from what I recall, apparently, like that game just it never recovered. Like I think the PSN was down for like how long was it down for? Was it like multiple weeks or something, or like a month? SOCOM 4 was not SOCOM. It did have a single player. Yeah, SOCOM 4, from what I can tell, was not. You could tell it was their attempt to like, we got to make it like Call of Duty, like a more traditional, you know, shooter. And I don't think that sat well with people. But I guess I'm just saying it would have been interesting to at least see the outcome if the PlayStation Network didn't get hacked and people could actually play the game. But I don't know. Yeah, Zipper, they got shut down. I mean, there's no denying. Look, I keep bringing up games like SOCOM, and I get it. Like, there's going to be people who are like, no, that'll never work. I'm just simply like, listen, man. I'm just simply saying, if Sony just got the balls to just say we're going to fucking make a game that's not for everybody, and that's going to be SOCOM. Guess what? That's what Arrowhead did. Look at how it worked out for them. Arrowhead got the balls. Now, granted, Sony funded their balls, but the point is like, and it goes to show that Sony does have that in them. Like, Sony let Arrowhead make that game, dude. I'm sure Sony looked at that and was like, yeah, good luck, guys. Like, I don't know. Good luck. Like we'll support you. We still believe in you, but I don't think this is going to be the one that breaks on through. And Arrowhead, they just like, yeah, we're just going to do our thing. And I think that this might be like the most valuable lesson that so many developers, some do learn it, some do figure it out, where it's like, just make the game that you want to make. Stop trying to focus test and stop trying to worry about, like, you know what? Who gives a shit if somebody doesn't want to leave Fortnite to play your new game? Now, I get it. I understand that, like, well, from a business level, you have to give some kind of shit. Yeah, you do. But it's like, maybe just don't try to focus, like, stop trying to focus so hard on, like, getting that player. Helldivers 2, something that was written up recently, and I know I keep bringing it up. Helldivers 2, the CEO, I think, recently went on record saying that they apparently had 6 million Call of Duty players or something like that. I guess they were like looking at the data, realizing that it was like 6 million Call of Duty players suddenly playing their game. And they said that they didn't know how to serve them. And that's, to me, that's like kind of, I don't know. There's something really important to be extracted from that, where it's like, so you didn't target Call of Duty players, you got Call of Duty players, but then you felt like you didn't know how to serve those players. But then they got back to it. They figured it out. They realized, like, okay, this is what we got to do. I don't know. It's Fair Games. I'm telling you, Fair Games is going to get canceled. All right, I'm falling behind on the super chats. I'm sorry. Buck, you're saying MBG, you are missing the big story. Video game consoles were not exempt for Trump's 125% China tariffs. 98% of PS5s are made in China. Gaming PCs were exempt. This is a massive blow to PS5 US and a win for Xbox, which are day one PC. Buck, you're saying PC is exempt. Where's that coming from? Like, electronics are specifically, it's electronics specifically. Well, Sony's going to have to do, it's not clear. Sony, if that's true, then Sony's going to have to do what, yeah, I mean, yeah, wouldn't a console count as electronics? I'll be honest, I stopped paying attention to it because if there's one thing I learned about following the whole tariff thing is that, dude, it's like changing every day. Gaming is exempt. Yeah, I feel like if this was true, Buck, I feel like if this was true, we would have heard something about it or it would have been reported on. I haven't seen anything. I mean, I'll just put this out here. If Sony was that nervous about, you know, like manufacturing PS5s and worrying about 125% tariff, I think they would just move to, they would move their manufacturing pipeline to a different country. That's exactly what Nintendo did. They, they're having Switch 2s produced in Vietnam now, I think. And that's not originally what they were going for, but they did that in preparation for the tariffs. So I do think that I don't know that this is like some kind of massive win for Xbox or Microsoft, dude. Because they're day one on PC. Roberto, you're saying after yesterday's reveal, I'm interested in playing Marathon. I wonder once everyone gets to play if the negative vibes will change. I do think that some of the negativity right now. I do think that a lot of the negativity, not some, a lot of the negativity is because what we see a lot these days, and I see this for single player games as well. It's not exclusive to multiplayer or live service games. When people who are on the internet see something that's not specifically for them, something that they are not excited about, something that, they're not going to be partaking in it, they tend to project, a really immense negativity towards it where it's like, there is some kind of level of entitlement. Now, granted, when you see enough people doing this, you do have to begin to ask yourself how much of this is manufactured versus how much of this is actually legitimate. And I will say that I've seen enough of it manufactured or not manufactured, but I've seen enough of it all around for Marathon to convince me that most of this is not manufactured. Some of it is. And I think it's easier to point out that, the type of negativity that I think is just, you were never going to play this game you were never going to play Bungie's next game, period. I think it's easy to point that out versus people who actually would have and are not. And that's why I'm not sure. I talked about this prior to the reveal, but I don't think there's anything Bungie can do to convince people. Roberto, you're saying maybe the negative vibes will change once people can play it. The reason why I don't think that's going to happen is because if there's one thing that will remain true for Marathon, no matter what Bungie decides to change, is it is an extraction shooter. And Bungie, by now, they should absolutely know. I could understand maybe they were overconfident years ago when they greenlit this game. They thought they can usher in a new age of extraction shooter. The extraction shooter genre is a tough one, man. It's a tough one. It's not an easy one to just get into. And if you watch the gameplay that they've shown, it's a stressful type of game. And I just think it's not going to be most people's cup of tea. I think the overwhelming majority of people are going to be like, no, I'm good, man. And I know that that kind of goes against what I said previously, where it's like, well, isn't that them just making the game that they want to make? Isn't that them, catering, not being afraid to make a more hardcore game? I mean, I would say yes if it was doing anything unique, but the fact that it's not trying to do anything different or unique and is basically just falling in line as another extraction shooter, it basically tells me that, you know, if it's either they chose an extraction shooter because they were convinced it was going to be the next big thing, or they chose an extraction shooter because they really want it to be different and create some kind of niche product. I'm going to say it's because they really believed it was going to be the next big thing. It's the intent behind it. The intent behind the product matters, and it comes through. People pick up on the intent. There's an energy behind it. I don't know how to explain it other than that, where it's like when you see a game revealed, you can usually pick up on like the vibe it's given out, And people didn't people I think when they see Marathon, they kind of come to this conclusion just automatically that like this I've seen this game already like 5 times over. And the only thing that people are saying about it that maybe differentiates it ever so slightly is, well, it looks kind of like visually, it looks artistically, not artistically, it looks different. Outside of that, it looks exactly the same. And I mean that's even if you are choosing to make the game that you want to make, I don't know. It's a really tough balance, man. Like I know I'm being harsh, and again, a lot of that comes from like I just want to see Sony succeed in this space and not continue to have overwhelming negativity. But you know, it's tough, man. When it comes to game dev, I'm not a developer, but it's very obvious from the outside looking in that like it's not easy to figure out and find out like what like do you have anything unique in your game? Like do you have like what's your hook here? And the one thing that I've seen people saying, and this is going to be interesting to me to witness in the coming months when this game comes out. One thing I've been seeing people mention is that Marathon apparently it has that Bungie feel. And this is where it reminds me of like the studio magic. Like there's always this idea of like we get our studio has a specific magic or whatever that can't be replicated. And that's what's unique to Marathon is that it's got that Bungie feel to the shooting, to the the mechanics. It's got the smoothness, the satisfaction of firing the weapon, getting hits, getting kills. And maybe that's true. I can't speak to that because I did not get the controller in my hands and play the game myself. So I can't sit here and say that isn't true. What I will say is that, unfortunately, I don't think it matters if that's true. The reason why I don't think it matters if that's true is because I think what makes, again, the extraction shooter genre is more hardcore, but we look at, say, a game like Helldivers 2, we see that being hardcore as well. The big difference is, though, in this title, you're less focused on the cooperative aspect, even though it is a co-op game. It is a co-op game. You could play it with up to 3 other players, teams of 3, but you have to do so knowing that other players are out there potentially going to be hunting you. There's just a big difference between that and like telling people like you could just play this game 3-player co-op and you don't have to fight other players. And what does that sound like to you? Oh wait, that's called Destiny. See, this is where I feel like Bungie painted themselves in a corner. And I think they ended up painting themselves in that corner because they didn't know where to go after Destiny. And I get it. It's like, I don't know where you go either, where it's like, you made this stellar co-op PvE game with a lot of lore, a lot of story. You could play it solo, you could play it with your friends, you can grind, and you have PvP, and people can play the PvP if they want. Eurogamer confirmed PCs will be exempt from tariffs, but consoles will not. Oh, okay. Let me look into this. Thank you. So I'm just highlighting this stuff because I feel like when you look at Marathon, I think overall it highlights a much bigger problem. I think it highlights a much bigger problem that Bungie has right now, which is, I think they know deep down, and I think everybody knows deep down, that Bungie peaked a while ago, and that there's no shot that what they're doing with Marathon is going to match or be better than what they did previously. And I think that's a tough thing, man. I think that's a tough thing for fans to deal with. I think it's a tough thing for the studio to deal with. And I think it's also a tough thing for Sony to deal with, because it's like, so you're telling us we bought Bungie for a ridiculous price when they were already past their prime and their best days were behind them? And it's like, yeah, sorry. People complain about not getting new stuff and then their new IPs and they crap on it. Well, to be fair, I mean, I understand why people would see this as a new IP. It's an IP that existed before with Bungie, but it may as well be a new IP. I mean, I get it too. You know, it's true. People do ask for new stuff. But I just think the problem is, like, again, like you if you watch Marathon gameplay, it's like, what seems new about this? I mean, what, because it's got a different name for every item, because the weapons have different names and different colors. Like, I'm not trying to put like that. I mean, that's a good question, Pushing Polygons. What seems new about most shooters, period? And I think this highlights a bigger problem. That bigger problem, and no, you should get that reductive, because that's how we kind of get to the bigger picture problem, which is the bigger picture problem that we might be witnessing right now is that we've reached the end game. You know, where it's like, yeah, almost everything's been done. And so there was the age of innovation, then there was the age of refinement. Now I think there's the age of, you know, well, I don't know what you'd call it, but like, everybody's settling in now, where if you want to play a shooter, chances are you already have a go-to shooter. You want to play an FPS, you got an FPS. You want to play a tactical shooter, you got a tactical shooter. You want to play a hero shooter, you got a hero shooter. The age of consolidation. And I feel like, if you know what it might ultimately be, is I think maybe Sony, you know, talk about Marathon and Bungie being late. I think maybe at the end of the day, we might find that it turns out Sony was the one who was late. You know, like, Sony was like a decade late to trying to break into the live service space. And it's interesting because we got interviews with Shuhei Yoshida. And guys, if you drop in a super chat, I promise I will read it. I just want to make sure I get my thoughts out here, before I go on side tangents. Shuhei Yoshida said that if it were up to him, he probably wouldn't pursue live service. What's interesting is Shuhei Yoshida was in charge of PlayStation Studios for that decade. For the decade that the industry was beginning to get aggressive with live service and all these big games were blowing up and establishing themselves as live services, as like the gods of live service or whatever, the black hole games. Sony completely avoided it. They wanted nothing to do with it. And so it kind of makes sense when you think, well, Jim Ryan comes in, Shoes out, Jim Ryan's in, Herman Hulst is in. Jim says we gotta do this. This turns out this is the next big thing. But maybe it just turns out that it's like, bro, you should have been doing this like about 10 years ago. Like 8 to 10 years ago is when you should have started thinking about this. You're thinking about it now. These games have years and years and years ahead. Like, there are years ahead of you. there's no denying that when people said a game like Concord maybe could have worked if it came out in like 2015 or something, or 2016, and not 2024, there's no denying that there is raw truth to that, dude, where people would have been much more willing. I'm not saying it would have succeeded. I'm not saying, like, because there were failures. You remember that game, was Battleborn? If I'm remembering that correctly, like Battleborn went up against Overwatch and got just slaughtered. There's a chance that Concord, if it came out like 2015, would have got slaughtered as well. But I'm just saying, like, people would have been more receptive and willing because it wasn't done to death at that point. It wasn't like everybody, everybody took their shot. Josh, thank you for letting me know. Yeah, I'll read the direct donations as well. All right, yeah, let me get a move on with these. Chris Brown with a super chat says, "So combo with MGS5 gameplay, take my money." Ooh. I mean, hell yeah, dude. I would play that. I understand there's like really die-hard like SOCOM players that would feel like that's way too different, but that sounds like it would be awesome. Lux, you're saying here Helldivers 2 appealed to the PC market. I agree. Yeah, I think without the PC market, Helldivers 2's success would have been basically 1/3. I think they would have found 1/3 the success, which still would have been a huge success, all things like for Sony, right? Like if Helldivers 2 was just a PS5 exclusive and it achieved 1/3 of its success, I think Sony would have been like, "Whoa, that's great." But there's no denying that, yeah, what PC was hugely responsible for Helldivers 2's success, and that's why I mean, somebody did mention yesterday how like maybe Marathon will find a bigger audience on PC, and that's possible, and we will see what happens there. But I feel like Sony's got to be careful because it's like, dude, Sony, you like, here's the thing that's important is Sony, you make a console, right? It's fine if you want to put your games on PC, but Sony can't make the mistake of we need to focus on serving the PC audience with our live service, because then you're going to end up neglecting your console audience, because the irony there is that there are many, many, many live service games that are super successful on console. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like, you don't want to be in this awkward position with your live service games where it's like our live service games find the majority of their success on PC and not on our own console. Other people's games find the majority of their success when it comes to live service on our console. That is a really awkward position to be in. And I mean, maybe that is the position they'll end up being in, but if not, they should try to make sure they don't facilitate that. But yeah, there's no denying that with the way Helldivers 2 succeeded on PC, I mean, Sony didn't get to decide that, right? They just had to. That's what's kind of funny about it, like when Sony tried to mandate the PlayStation Network account for Helldivers 2 and everybody freaked out and they're like, "Oh, okay, we're so sorry. Like, our bad. Like, we just, I think Sony realized very quickly that like you can't just walk into the PC space and do whatever you want. Well, you can, but you're going to find out real quick that like there is a difference between expectations on PC versus console, and you have to keep that in mind. We have Buck here with another super chat, and he says, "Big tech lobbied Trump. Japanese companies like Sony and Nintendo not at the table. Xbox is in third place, and on PC, Switch 2 partially made in Vietnam. It's only partially made in Vietnam? Saying PS5 sales at risk with GTA in the US with tariffs at 125%. Well, somebody said there was an article on Eurogamer. Here we go. Okay. I'm going to read this article from Eurogamer because I think it is important. It says PCs will be exempt from Trump's tariffs, but not consoles. While PCs and smartphones will be exempt from Trump's retaliatory tariffs in the U.S., this was written April 13th, by the way. Okay. I don't know if that came through the mic or not, but almost sounded like the gopher scream. It did. It caught me off guard. So it says, while PCs and smartphones will be exempt from Trump's retaliatory tariffs in the U.S., consoles will not. That's according to former GamesIndustry.biz boss Christopher Dring, who confirmed in his newsletter, The Game Business, that not only could Nintendo's upcoming Switch 2 console be impacted by tariffs, but so too will PlayStation and Xbox's consoles. At the time of this writing, it's unclear if the exemptions for other tech components like SSDs and PCs were intentionally not applied to consoles or if it's merely an oversight. On the plus side, it looks as though Nintendo Switch cartridges will be spared the extra 125% levy. Nintendo had already directed the vast majority of its Switch 2 manufacturing output from Vietnam towards the U.S. over the first 2 months of this year, as the threat of Trump's now confirmed tariffs loomed. But the stinging tariffs applied to Vietnam, a key manufacturer for Nintendo, and China continue to cause considerable uncertainty. This may also have a ripple effect of pitting Asian players against U.S. game studios. It's not far-fetched to think that even if a deal is struck for tariffs and other issues between the U.S. and China, Chinese consumers would protest the economic uncertainty by avoiding U.S. products and even by avoiding U.S. technologies and games. So what's interesting, the most important part here that I want to read is it says here that as of the time of this writing, it is unclear if these exemptions for other tech components like SSDs and PCs were intentionally not applied to consoles or if it's merely an oversight. It seems like we're going to have to wait to get specific confirmation and clarification that consoles are not part of this, because it could be one of these things where they just never mention it, but it seems kind of important. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. That could be highly problematic. That could be highly problematic. I wonder why though. Like, I wonder why it would be. Why would consoles be not be exempt alongside PCs? Like, why? I guess like the question is like, why would consoles be treated differently? Like, what would be the reasoning behind that? We'll find out. But Buck, thank you for letting me know about that. I actually was completely unaware. We have Easy Tone here. He says, "What you're saying reminds me of a take I heard yesterday. Quote, Marathon looks like Bungie thought, what if we made Marathon as an extraction shooter versus, quote, what if we made what we want?" Hmm. Where did that quote come from, Easy Tone? What if we made an extraction shooter? What if we made what we want? Well, there was this report a couple of months ago. Trump wants console manufacturing moved to the US. Oh, I don't think that's going to happen, though. MBG is a supply chain that will hurt PC consoles, even though they say it won't. The US will be able to make consoles in a decade or two once they built up the manufacturing base and educated generations of engineers. I mean, I feel like that's the problem, dude. Like, the idea of just, I mean, that's something that's going to take a long time. Saying you forget, maybe it was Skillup who said that. Well, I mean, dude, there was a report not that long ago that apparently internally Bungie developers wanted to do more single player focused stuff. That's what they wanted to do. They wanted to get off of the live service grind and do more single player stuff. And the higher ups at Bungie that are no longer there because Sony fired them, they said no. They said no. And you just have to wonder, man. You just, like, what if Marathon was a single player game? or at the very least had like a single player campaign. How differently? I feel like people would talk about it very differently. If you don't want to play it for the extraction shooter, if you don't pay $40 to play the extraction shooter aspect, you could pay $40 to play the single player campaign. I think that would change not everything, but it would help a lot. A lot. Boycott Activision says, I think the initial reaction to PS5 games as a service scared Sony into reducing investment. Well, what's interesting is, as of right now, we don't know what they're investing in. Right? Like, we know the pipeline of single-player games for the remainder of the generation and maybe a few others that have yet to be revealed. We know that was invested in. We know the only recent investment that I can think of that is peculiar is Dark Outlaw Games, like a brand new studio built internally at Sony, where it's clearly going to be a live service game. It's going to be a live service co-op game. And, you know, it's like, I don't know. Like, to me, that does seem like a pretty heavy investment, but it's hard to say, boycott Activision. Like, Sony's definitely shook, but some of the things they're doing behind the scenes tell me that, like, they're shook, but not shook enough to walk away from finding success in live service. And I've said this before, and I will say it again. People want Sony to completely walk away from live service. Like, just go back to the PS4 era. You're not doing anything. That's just not possible. I would like to think that people understand that by now, that Sony literally can't do that, because every single major publisher in the world that's, you know, relevant has at least one very successful live service, and a live service that's remains relevant, or an IP that they've converted into a live service that's still relevant. Sony needs that. Now, Helldivers might end up being that thing for them, and you could make the argument that they don't need anything else. But I think Sony wants more, and that might be the problem. Josh Z, you're saying when leadership in a company changes, the business philosophy changes too, and it's not always for the better. Sony has a broken business philosophy right now. You think so? I'm not even sure what their business philosophy is, man. Like, that's the biggest problem that I'm having with Sony, specifically with PlayStation, is I don't know what their philosophy is. You know, like, we got new leadership in there now, and the fact of the matter is, what we're seeing with Marathon is pre this new leadership. This, you know, Marathon had nothing to do. The people who are in charge right now had nothing to do, seemingly, with getting to where we are now, in terms of, like, you know, saying we need to buy Bungie, saying we need to greenlight Marathon, saying, you know, it's hard to say, because Hiroki Totoki is the CEO, and he definitely was there as the CFO, so he watched the whole thing unfold. But I don't even know what their business philosophy is. I do worry that, like, if there are major changes that were made behind the scenes from a, you know, a business philosophical point of view, of, like, the overall foundational, like the core tenets, right, of, like, this is what we're going to do with the PlayStation brand. If that changed, I fear that we're not going to see that for quite some time. Like, it's going to be literally years. Like, basically, it's like we just got to finish out the PS5 gen with everything that Jim and Connie Booth and everything that they set up, and we got to mitigate the damage, and then we just got to, like, the new philosophy is going to begin starting with the next generation. I hope that's not the case, but if you think about it from a timeline point of view, that would make the most sense, right? So it could be that the business philosophy we're seeing right now on display seems somewhat broken or discombobulated or whatever, or it needs to be recalibrated, because Sony is in the process of recalibrating it, and we're gonna see the results of that recalibration in the coming years. It's like I said, I'm sitting here complaining about, like, we're seeing a game reveal with Marathon. I'm seeing things like Concord trending a year later after that game died. And meanwhile, like, games like SOCOM, Resistance, and all these other titles are just locked in a basement somewhere. And, I just, the reality is, like, it's not like, don't worry, guys, Hiroki Totoki and Hideaki Nishino are in charge now, and then boom, suddenly they just make a SOCOM game or a Resistance game appear. These things take years to get off the ground. And so the big hope, I would say right now, is that any of the projects, any of the studios that they're striking deals with, anything of that nature, any project that Sony is working to get off the ground right now, they have a completely different approach to it. They receive the message. They know what not to do now. Like what games to avoid, what games to not strike deals with, what studios to stay away from, what IP they should try to bring back versus what IP, what type of new IP they should or should not greenlight. The hope is that they kind of understand this now, but there's no way to prove that, unfortunately. I'm just very glad, like I said, that Sony, if there's one thing I will give Sony credit for, I mean, there are many things I'll give Sony credit for if I feel as though they, I like to give credit where it's due. But the biggest thing is I will give Sony the credit that even in the middle of screwing up so badly with some live service here, or not some, but like a lot of live service attempts, that most of which got canceled, in the midst of all that, they did have enough wisdom to understand that if this blows up, which it did, you're going to need single player games to fall back on. And thank God somebody at Sony, I don't know, I mean, maybe it was Jim, maybe it was Herman, somebody had the foresight to realize that if this blows up, and there's a high chance it will, you're gonna need games like Death Stranding 2. You're gonna need to make sure that Sucker Punch is working on that single player Ghost of Yotei. You're gonna need to make sure that Naughty Dog still has at least one single player game in development. You're gonna need to make sure Insomniac is still working on Wolverine. Stuff like that, and Housemarque is making another single player game, even if it's not going to sell 3 or 4 or 5 million units. We're still going to need that. I'm just really glad that they understood that on a fundamental level, because if they didn't, the situation we could see PlayStation in right now, I'm not even kidding you, could literally look like the only game we get from Sony this year is Marathon, and maybe Fair Games. So, did anybody actually ask for Death Stranding 2? Yeah, I think a lot of people did. PS5 2025, Ghost of Yotei, Death Stranding 2, Lost Soul Aside, Days Gone Remastered, MLB The Show, Marathon. What else? I don't know. I think that may be it for now, anyway. Not a bad lineup. And I don't play MLB The Show. I try not to count MLB The Show, because I mean, I don't. No, I'm not saying it's only Marathon. Like, no. I think you're misunderstanding. The games that you just listed off, I'm saying that's the at least the wisdom that Sony had, where they understood that if by 2025, keep in mind, Jim Ryan thought that by this year there was going to be like 10 live service games out for Sony. That's what he thought. And they have like one out right now. Keep that in mind. Jim Ryan told investors that by 2025, 2026, we're going to have about 10 to 12 live service games. Right? I guess MLB can count. So maybe it's like 2. Maybe, I mean, if you count Gran Turismo, that would be 3. But I'm saying Sony had enough wisdom where it's like, but just in case that doesn't work out, we want to make sure that by 2025, we have at least 1 or 2 big tentpole AAA single player games. And yeah, they have Death Stranding 2. They have Ghost of Yotei. And I know people are not. I mean, I know some people are upset about the idea of Days Gone getting remastered, but I'm not going to lie. I'm excited to see Days Gone 2 get re-released, because I'm like, I want to see this game get a second chance. I love seeing on the PlayStation YouTube channel, they release a trailer for the new Horde Assault mode for Days Gone, and all you see are people flooding the comments being like, Days Gone 2, Days Gone 2, like, come on, Sony. And that gives me hope that, like, maybe now the message will finally be sent that, like, yes, make a freaking Days Gone 2. People loved it. You know, people love that game. And I am happy, even though I'm not happy that we're not getting a sequel right now. I'm just happy to see that there's hope that, like, new people will experience this game. And, you know, it's an opportunity for that and for Sony to get the message. So, like, if Sony is in the process of trying to greenlight new projects right now, yeah, I mean, it's like, hey, man, maybe they suggest to Sony Ben, like, Ben, listen, have you guys considered making a sequel to Days Gone? And, you know, considering Ben's game, which was going to be a live service, just got canceled, you know, they might all look at each other and be like, yeah, I guess maybe we should. Oh, yeah, my bad, Josh. Thank you for the reminder. We have a couple of direct donations from Josh, aka Moonshot. And he says, I'm not jiving with Marathon. The art style and UI just look soulless and uninteresting. It was a struggle to watch that gameplay reveal. I was bored, man. Could be good, but it's a pass for me. I'm not a live service guy to begin with, but there is a lot of games coming this year that I would rather play. And, you know, Josh, I have to say, like, I think you basically just summed up how I feel as well. Like, there's a good chance I will try Marathon at some point, but I went back and I watched more gameplay, and I really kind of sat with it, you know, and observed. And, you know, I'm not watching it in a live environment. I'm just doing it on my own time and taking it in. And I mean, yeah, man, it's I don't walk away from it thinking it looks bad, because, like, that's what I think is interesting is you're not saying, Josh, that you think it looks bad. You're just saying it's not interesting to you. It feels kind of soulless. You're saying you were a little bit bored, and I'm like, yeah, I kind of feel that way as well. You know, where I'm walking away from it being like, if I could play Marathon right now, I would. Just because, okay, yeah, I'll play it. I'll try it right now. But what I could see happening with me in Marathon is I play like 3, 4, maybe 5 rounds. I have a couple rounds where maybe I experience that high of I'm succeeding and this feels great to win. But then I have a couple of rounds where I get annihilated and I lose. And I'm like, you know, I could just see myself getting to a point after even just a couple of rounds of like, I think I'm good. Like, there's other things I want to play, you know? And I guess what I'm ultimately trying to say here is that I don't think Marathon looks like a bad game, but there's no hooks. I don't see a hook. I don't see a potential hook. You know, I I just don't see it. You know, I don't know if it was something maybe I'd have to experience it firsthand and I would feel that hook. But yeah, I tend to agree with what you're saying here, Josh. And I appreciate you giving me your thoughts on that. You're, you know, keeping it. I can appreciate that. I appreciate people just like giving their thoughts and not being like over the top about it, but just being, you know, reasonable, right? Drive by Joe says Call of Duty graphics, PUBG gameplay minus the teeny bopper BS jackpot. Boom. Boom. That seems like a tough one though. Call of Duty graphics, PUBG gameplay. I mean, dude, I'm not gonna lie. I feel like that could work, man. That could work. Like, cause I put over like 1,000 hours into PUBG, and I'll tell you what, I spent a long time playing that game, and the graphics were terrible. Now I think the graphics have improved, but for the longest time, PUBG looked like a blend between a PS3 and a PS2 game. Well, maybe PS2 is pushing it, but like it definitely looked like a PS3 game. But it didn't matter because the gameplay mechanics were so effing good. They were so they were. I mean, the tactical nature of PUBG was so good. I would love to see that. Did you see the hook of Helldivers 2 at the reveal? in the end, you platinum the game. Actually, I did personally. Yeah. The hook for me was the fact that I thought well, first off, I thought the shooting mechanics. Let me back up. The hook for me was immediate. The first trailer we ever saw, I think, for Helldivers 2, when they showed that it wasn't top down, but it was a proper third person over the shoulder, that was the immediate hook for me. Because I was like, holy shit, I expected Helldivers 2 to be another top down game, which I would have not been interested in. But they're actually going with a more traditional third person shooter over the shoulder. So that was very different from anything Arrowhead did before. And I love third person shooters. So it immediately had my attention. The second hook came in the form of showing how intense and chaotic the battles would be with the Terminids, and how you could basically like blow each other up at any moment if you're not careful. That was the second hook. And I would say the third hook from there was probably the stratagems. In like when they showed what the stratagems were, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. You have to manually call in like which to me felt like almost like Call of Duty like score streaks and stuff. And how like they're super deadly and dangerous and can again wipe your whole team if you're not careful. These were like the three hooks that got me. And I noticed when I was talking about Helldivers 2, a lot of people didn't get it. Like I noticed that, man, this game has hooked me in a lot more than other people prior to its launch. And then that's why I was so shocked to see, like, because I remember people asking, like, do you think Helldivers 2 is going to succeed? And I said, I think it'll be okay. It looks good to me. It looks very good. But I think right now, based off of what I could tell, this is prior to launch, you're going to maybe see Helldivers carve out a nice little space for itself, and it'll be okay, you know? That's why I was shocked when it was like, no, actually, it's going to be the next big thing. Like, oh, shit. Even I didn't know that. Concurrent player count on Steam at launch. Ooh, I can't predict that, man. I don't think I think it'll be decent, but I don't know. I mean, what would a concurrent player count for Marathon on Steam be? What would it need to be in order for me to view it as a success? Hmm. I mean, well, let me see here. So for Destiny 1, or for Destiny 2, I mean, the peak concurrent player count was 2.5 years ago with 316,000 people. Um, is Destiny 1 on here? For some reason, I can't find Destiny 1. But for Destiny 2, the peak was 316,000. So I'm thinking it's got to be between 75 and 125,000. Maybe that's well, I don't know. Hold on. To be fair, that seemed to have peaked in like a couple of years ago. So I don't know, man. Maybe like 50K, 60K, something like that. I don't know if that's. I mean, look, I'm just saying, in order for it to be like, okay, this can work. Like this can work. Like we have enough people here that this can work. I think between 50 and 75K. I think if it gets to 100K plus, it'll do fine. I know. Look, I'm not trying to. I'm that for me, that's like low expectations, dude. Like we just need to know if this game can work or not. If it goes below 50K, I think Bungie's in a lot of fucking trouble. If Marathon can't get above the 50K mark at launch, I think it's in a lot of trouble. All right, let me catch up on these super chats. Buck says Christopher Dring confirmed on X unless the tariffs change, it will take well over a year for Xbox or PS5 production from China to move somewhere else. Man, that's not going to be good, dude. That Sony's going to have to figure something out. So Sony's just going to have to stop being a bitch and just eat that loss. They're going to have to go back to the old days. You're just going to have to eat the loss, bro. You got to move that hardware. You got to eat the loss. It's not even your fault. But they can afford it. They're not going to do that. Well, I don't know. It's like, bro, if your choice is you either eat the loss or you mark up the PlayStation 5 in your most important market. Maybe here's something that nobody's considering. Maybe they'll just increase the price in other regions that's not the US to try to make up for it. No, I don't know. I don't know what they'll do. I am worried about that though, man, because if Sony has to come out and be like, we have to increase the price of the PS5 years into the generation. We're supposed to be looking at a console that's getting $100 price reduction. Instead, it's getting a $100 price increase. No matter which way you slice it, doesn't matter what the reasoning is. People are going to freak out. And that sucks. Like, I don't want to go through that, man. I don't want to go through that. Easy Tone says, crazy part of Luke Stevens' video. He asked what they thought would be considered unique, and the developer said two things that won't be ready at launch. Shaking my head. Huh. Oh, you know what? I think I know what you. So I didn't watch that Luke Stevens thing, but I heard another content creator who was invited to the Bungie event or the marathon event, and apparently, according to this person, Bungie is going to be trying to do like raids and stuff like that, and like dungeons in an extraction shooter, and like that's going to be like them, I guess, trying to do something unique in the extraction shooter space. I wonder if that's what he was referring to. Like maybe that's an idea they have, but it's not going to be ready. And yeah, it's just not a good look. We have Gavin Hillick who says, "I have so much sympathy for devs with all the inconsistent and contradictory criticism I'm hearing about this game, often from the same person." Gavin, what do you mean? Well, I mean, are you referring to me, or is there somebody else? I mean, there's no denying that devs have to deal with a lot of inconsistent criticism. And the reality for most people in general is that they're not consistent. I'm not consistent. Nobody's perfectly consistent. People's feelings change. People's feelings about things change. And I think one of the toughest things you witness, probably as a developer or even just on the other side of it from the consumer side, is like sometimes people just don't realize that like you just aren't into things the same way that you used to be, or that things are not going to be the way they used to be. They have changed, and everything has changed with it. You're saying me and others, you imagine it's very frustrating for them. I'm sure it is. I have no doubt it is. And I don't envy them. Like the only thing here is that, these companies expect money from us, like a good amount of money, and they also want our time. And this is where it's kind of tough, where it's like they want your time, they want your money, but at the same time, like they want to do things in a way that, like, I guess you have to ask yourself, like, how unfair is it really for people to criticize when it's like they're asking you for that? I think one of the things that's going to make Marathon so tough is like immediately out of the gate, people are people are frustrated at the fact that this game isn't free to play. You know, they're frustrated that this game isn't free to play. And I just feel like that, like the fact that there's already this level of questioning and concern about pricing, it's like, I don't know what to tell the devs at that point, you know? Because the devs have to ask themselves, well, do we think this is worth a premium price point of like $40? And if they say, yeah, it is, I can't really feel sorry for them if it's like, okay, here's our game. And then everybody's like, I don't think that's worth. Is it free to play? No. Boss, you need to get out. You're going to knock the computer over. To me, that's like, yeah, I don't know, man. Like, you, I think, overestimated the value of your game. Sorry, hold on. My studio crashed. I think maybe they overestimated the value of their game, where it's like, all right, well, what are your selling points? Our selling points are 3 maps at launch. And it's like, well, that sounds like a low amount. It's like, no, it's okay. They're big maps. That's how extraction shooters work. How's that going to translate to the wider market? Because the wider market that's not familiar with extraction shooters are not going to understand that extraction shooter maps are very big and detailed, and that having 3 maps for an extraction shooter actually isn't that bad. But see, that's the problem, is it's like, well, we're going to ask you for $40. And we're going to tell you a selling point is we're going to have 3 maps at launch and a battle pass. So they're also expecting you to pay for a battle pass if you want more content. And it's like, that's a marketing thing, dude, where it's like, yeah, if you're trying to get a new audience interested in an extraction shooter, and they're, they want to know, like, all right, well, why should I forego the free to play extraction shooter for your paid premium extraction shooter? You're saying 3 maps, that's not a lot. And then you have to, like, if you have to explain it, you likely already lost the person. But Gavin, I do understand where you're coming from to a degree. There's no denying that any developer, and I don't think this is exclusive to Bungie or to live service games, but any developer that is trying to make a successful video game, especially a developer that has a history, and a fan base, it can be extremely tough, man. Where, I'm a very small content creator, right? I'm a very small content creator. So I absolutely know firsthand what it's like to be given, to hear opinions from all different directions where, people are saying I should do this. People are saying I should do that. People are saying I should talk about this. People are saying I should talk about that. People are saying I'm right about this and I'm wrong about that. Believe me, it sometimes, yeah, if I try to pay attention to all of it and take it all in, I realize, like, all of this just cancels each other out. Like, it's all, so much of it is contradictory, and so much of it is just not, it's said with a lack of understanding of what's actually going on from a bigger picture point of view, or from a behind the scenes point of view. And so I totally get it, where it's like, I don't envy the developers where, especially with live service games, where it's like, you got to have constant communication. Like, dude, sometimes it is just better to just focus on doing what you want to do. Because something I can say for sure that is a reality, I think, for any, I'll say any content creator, but like it extends to media as well. Is like, the more they let, like, how it's like, we want the player to shape the game, and it's like, but I don't know, man. It's a tough balance to walk. Where it's like, maybe you guys should focus on just shaping the game, though. More so, you know what I mean? Like don't worry too much about the community. Like, do what you think is going to be best, and kind of lean into that. But I could also see how that's probably so hard to do when it's like, I don't know, man, everybody seems to be being so negative about it, you know? So I don't know. It's a really tough thing, and these days it does feel like specifically with I mean, it feels like it's with a lot of things, but with PlayStation, it does feel like there's a lot of like extra there's like normal concern and then there's like concern with an extra layer of like, hate from certain people as well. And to be fair, I'm not seeing much hate on the PlayStation side of things. It does exist, but for once it does seem like people are more focused on Bungie themselves. And I don't know if that was a strategic thing on Sony's part, but I don't know. It's weird times, man. Weird times. But all this is to say, though, that I still think Marathon will carve out a piece of its own. I just think it's going to be a very small piece. And I think Bungie, I hate to say this, but I think it's true. And I think some people already feel this way. I think Bungie ultimately is going to end up being a shell of their former selves, where I think people, a couple years after Marathon's out, I think people are going to look back and be like, Destiny was the peak or Halo was the peak. And, Bungie's just kind of a shell now. Like, not bad. It's just they're not anywhere near as good as they used to be, you know? I mean, to me, the weirdest thing is that apparently, according to like certain leaks regarding Bungie, Destiny 3 isn't even in development, which is like, I don't even know what that means. Like, does that mean they're putting everything in the Marathon? Because like that's concerning to me. Maybe Destiny 3 is like a backup. I don't know. Roberto, you're saying, are you going to try Marathon? I'll give it if there's like an open beta, I'll definitely give it a shot. Yeah, I'm not trying to fight to get into the alpha. I'm not that interested. This is a game that I mean, like I I've been very harsh on it, and I'm trying to take in so many different opinions and get a broader view, but I could see this game being a game I get hooked on potentially. I can't say for sure until I play it myself. I'm not itching to play it based off of what I've seen, but I've played a lot of multiplayer games that I never thought would get their hooks into me, and then they definitely did. This could be one of them. I'm going in with that level of open mindedness. I've seen people just definitively be like, I'm not touching this game. I'm not playing it all. I'm not one of those people. Like I think that the level of intensity that was shown in the gameplay is something that could very much get its hooks into me. But every game at the end of the day is unique in the way that it plays and the way that it feels. And you really can't know until you get your hands on it yourself. So I am looking forward to hopefully getting an open beta and I can try it myself extensively. And I'll know from that point forward, like if if I enjoy myself enough, I will buy the game and play it for a while. And if I love it, I could see myself again sticking with it for a very long time. But there's a chance that if I go to play the beta and it's like I had some fun, but I'm not vibing with it, then it's just it'll be a game I end up just passing on, which is not a big deal. Lux, you're saying Sony already won. It has the casuals on console. Excuse me, FIFA, Madden, and Call of Duty players. They can just coast with no Xbox, and Nintendo is only for their own IPs. Well, and you also say here U.S. made consoles would break after a month. You got that U.S. made PS5, bro. U.S. made PS5 Pro. I don't think it would be good for Sony to coast. No, I think that Sony. All right, hold on. Boss, I'm only giving you a little appetizer. He's just really he's really going after me. And Corey, bro, that's crazy. Corey, the legend, drops a 20 bomb out of nowhere. The timing of that. Corey. I didn't even see you drop those membership gifts, and I just went to go give Boss some treats because I'm like, he's been waiting, and he's really getting antsy. So, Corey, thank you so much for that, man. He does it himself. He did the heavy lift today for Boss. Boss, you're going to have to give Corey a thank you, man.
Holy shit.
I'm no hero. Never was. Never will be.
Sorry, my I don't know why this is. Corey, thank you so much for the membership gifts, buddy. Single-handedly crushes the goal. That's why we call him the legend around here. Corey the Cat Whisperer. Is that going to be his new nickname? Corey the Boss Whisperer. Let me see here. Sorry, my YouTube studio crashed again. I hate it when it does that, man. I don't know why it does that. All right. Well, so I'll give you a couple more. Since I only gave him a little appetizer. I'll give you a couple more. There you go, man. Now you can sleep with a full belly. Lux, just to get back to what you were saying, man, I don't want to see Sony get complacent. I don't want to see them get complacent in any area. I know that this idea that Sony has won, they won a battle. They didn't win the war because there is no winning the war. The war doesn't even actually exist, right? The battle was between Sony and Xbox in the home console space. Like, they're both doing pretty much the same thing. One of them's going to win out. One of them's going to come out on top. And that was PlayStation. And that's okay. Xbox found their own path now. And so that battle is over, but the war itself can be represented in growth, right? And when it comes to that, Sony, same as Microsoft, same as Nintendo, like, enough will never be enough because they want to keep growing. They have to keep growing. You know, they're a publicly traded company, and like, you know, if they were to get too complacent, if they were to get too comfortable, and they were to just sit back and coast, somebody's going to lap them. It might not be in console sales. It's going to be in something else, the next thing. And so Sony has to. I don't think Sony has to be as on edge anymore. I think those days are over. Like, the fierce battle and competition between Microsoft and Sony, getting in the ring and duking it out and seeing who's going to walk away with the title or whatever, that's over. They're now working together. But the days of Sony, you know, continuing to pursue growth and trying to, you know, ultimately pursue growth vectors, whether that be vertically or horizontally or both, that's not over, because it can't be. Because the one thing I always bring up when people mention the idea of Sony getting complacent is, like, they did go through this already. And I don't think they forgot, because it wasn't that long ago. It was quite some time ago, but not like, it was like 50 years ago or something, you know? Sony went through this with the PS3, where they found out very quickly how you can be at the very top and just as quickly find yourself at the very bottom. And that happened through sheer like hubris and arrogance, you know, and just a true belief of, like, we're untouchable, we won, the war's over. And they learned very quickly that no, that's not how this works. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, this time maybe Sony isn't scared because Xbox really is done. Xbox isn't going to have another 360 moment and then knock Sony off the top. You're right about that. But that's the thing, is, like, anybody else could. Like I said, it doesn't just have to be consoles. Nintendo could do it with the Switch 2, which would be another console. But if it's not Nintendo with their console, it could be something like Game Pass. It could be um it could end up being live service games, where it's like Sony was so focused on taking on Microsoft for so long and winning people over to buy their console that they're now on the back foot with live service. Meanwhile, Microsoft solved their live service problem by buying Activision Blizzard and Bethesda in one fell swoop. You know, Microsoft realized we can't buy console sales, but we can buy live service. And now what's Sony trying to chase? Sony's trying to chase live service. So it's a good thing in a sense where it's like, yeah, they can't get complacent, because if they get complacent, if they get too complacent, growth is going to stagnate. And the moment growth stagnates, that's when they start sliding downhill. And Sony knows what that's like. Silent Spartan, a member for 17 months, says, I think Marathon will be a dark horse. It will launch to big numbers, but whether it keeps them is another story. Well, I'll tell you this, Silent Spartan. It would be quite surprising to me if Marathon launches to very big numbers, only because that would mean the internet is completely wrong. And it's not, to be fair, it's not like the internet's been completely wrong many times before, but like, I've been watching this stuff long enough, I think, to be able to get a good feel for things, right? I've been reacting to things long enough. I've been watching reveals long enough. And I've been like not compulsively, but chronically on the internet long enough to get some idea where like you can sense when you can get a better sense of people are overreacting and people are over exaggerating for the sake of it versus no, there's something real here. For the PS5 Pro, for example, that to me was something where it was a bit of an overreaction. It was a knee-jerk reaction to a price point that people were not prepared for, but that was not indicative of failure. And I was correct about that. And this isn't like, it's not a victory lap or anything, but it's just like I suspected that, people are in shock and angry at a price point they were not expecting. That's going to calm down and blow over, and everybody's going to get used to it. And when that happens, the PS5 Pro is going to carve out the exact spot for itself that it meant to carve out from the start, which is this is just for the enthusiast who really wants it. And that's it. And that's exactly who's buying it. And that's why it's not a failure, right? Completely different story when we look at something like Concord. I'm trying to keep it in the realm of PlayStation right now. Something like Concord, it's like, when watching it, felt like, oh, this is going to be bad. And then I saw the internet's reaction and I could tell, like, oh, this is bad. Like, there are people being really hyperbolic, but then but in between that hyperbole is just negativity. And then outside of that negativity is just more negativity. And then even when I try to look for the few people that are saying something good about it, even the most positive thing they're saying is maybe. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. So this is serious. Like this thing's gonna crash and burn, and I could see that. And I think almost everybody could see that. I feel like when it comes to, and I'll give like a third example just to kind of keep things balanced here. A third example would be the Ghost of Yotei reveal. When Ghost of Yotei was revealed, I saw a lot of negativity in my chat. I saw a lot of negativity in comment sections, and I saw a lot of negativity on like places like Twitter. But when I went to go look a little bit further, I'm not just reading specific posts and comments on specific posts. I'm not just reading some people in my chat, because there was a lot of excitement in my chat as well. It was like 50-50. I noticed that like there's a lot of hype for this game. Like, it turns out a lot of people are very excited for Ghost of Yotei, and a lot of that negativity I think was coming from, again, it's kind of like an overreaction. Like, where's my Jin Sakai? Where's my Jin, bro? And I think a lot of those people are going to ultimately be like, all right, that's cool. Like eventually, it'll just be like, okay, I guess Jin's story is over. Some of those people might not let go and they'll move on to something else. And then another subsection of that hate was coming from, I would say, people who were being kind of radical from a political standpoint, where they're like, yeah, but the voice actress is a is a political activist. And I'm like, and that should influence my feeling on this trailer that Sucker Punch put together. Why? And I had this kind of feel like I was a little bit upset with the Jin thing. I will admit, like I was a little bit caught off guard. Like, whoa, I'm like, where's Jin, bro? I thought we were gonna get Jin, but then I saw how awesome the trailer was. I'm like, you know what though, this looks incredible. So I'm like, yeah, okay. So they wanted to go 300 years beyond Jin. Cool. Now my hype level's at an all time high. And what I'm trying to point out is that once that blew over, I'm looking around and I'm realizing like it's mostly just people being excited. You know, it's mostly people just being excited because they think that like all the people who supposedly were so upset about it, I think they just kind of moved on to be upset about something else. You know, and I guess what I'm trying to say is like I could kind of pick up in that moment or like shortly after that moment, like within the weeks that ensued, like a week or two later, I kind of started to realize like, yeah, I think a lot of this hate that I'm seeing towards Ghost of Yotei right now, I think is artificially manufactured. And if it's not artificial, it's coming from a strange place that I think at the end of the day, it's like, bro, I'm not sure you're playing games for the right reasons, you know? Or at the very least, you might be limiting how much you're actually enjoying video games. And I feel now, granted, we have to see gameplay and we have to see more, but right now I feel like that was a correct assessment and that like, yeah, there are people having meltdowns and losing their minds at this reveal. I think the overall outcome is people are going to love this game because there's like when you just look at it from an objective standpoint, there's nothing wrong with it. It only seems good. Like the things we have seen have only seemed they only look good. There's nothing about it that looks bad. You remember when Ghost of Tsushima was getting panned for not respecting Japanese culture, and ironically enough, Gavin, if I'm not mistaken, I think Sucker Punch was praised by Japan essentially for their portrayal. Like you guys did amazing. They got applauded for that. So I'm just highlighting these three distinct things in an effort to try to gauge where Marathon is. And my intuition and like my assessment of Marathon right now is that I think it will be okay ultimately, but it's going to be like Marathon's not going to be a big success for Bungie. It's not going to be a big hit game. It's going to find an audience. It's going to have a loyal audience. But I think Bungie's heyday is over. I think Bungie truly, but when it's all said and done, I think we'll realize that Bungie truly did peak with maybe like Destiny 2. And that was like the last big hurrah from them. And going forward, everything's going to be shrunk down. You know, the scope of Marathon is nowhere near the scope of what something like Destiny was. You know, it seems like Bungie themselves as a studio has shrunk dramatically due to again layoffs and mismanagement and stuff like that. And I also get the sense that the enthusiasm in general for a new Bungie product it's just not on the same level. So with all that in mind, and also seeing that there are people who are excited for this game, I want to state that very clearly. Like, I don't know if I think I have made it clear, but just in case I haven't, there are people excited for this game. There are absolutely groups of people who will be there day one, and there are going to be people who are very much ready to support this game for the long run. And that's good. Like, I'm not this type of person where it's like, well, you shouldn't do that. I don't like it, so you shouldn't either. I don't see anything wrong with the game. You know, if anything, I might be, I think, projecting some of my frustrations onto Bungie when in reality, my frustrations, I think, lie more with Sony, where it's like Bungie was going to make this game no matter what, whether they were with PlayStation or not. And so my frustration isn't with Bungie choosing to make this game because it's like, fine, Bungie makes a game that's not for me. Shocker. Right? Like, it's not a big deal. It's more along the lines of like, I want to see Sony, I want to see PlayStation do more than this in the live service space. I want to see Sony get a little bit more creative, or if not creative, just I want to see them get a little bit more. I want to see them take more risk in a sensible way. Well, Sony took the risk with Concord. Look at how that worked out. Again, in a sensible way. The risk that Sony took with Concord is not sensible or rational. I'll be honest, man. It's the perfect storm for me. I have this, I kind of have this chip on my shoulder, and I'm sure you guys pick up on it. And I know it annoys some people, but I have this chip on my shoulder with Sony and maybe even Naughty Dog to a degree where it's like, it drives me nuts to see this game. And it's not fair to Marathon because I saw people yesterday, and we have to acknowledge this. I should have acknowledged it yesterday, but I was a bit all over the place yesterday. I'm always a bit all over the place, but more so yesterday. So many people were blaming Bungie for the cancellation of The Last of Us, and we need to clear something here. And I admit, I thought that's what happened as well. We have since had clarification that Bungie did not. The only thing you can blame Bungie for is informing Naughty Dog the level of difficulty involved with maintaining a successful live service, which they're not wrong for doing that. And if anything, it's good that they informed Naughty Dog of that, because if Naughty Dog went into a live service launch not realizing, like, so you guys are ready to grind the content out, right? And they're like, what? What do you mean? I would have been okay with it, because I'd have been like, oh, so you just gave us a multiplayer game in the Last of Us universe with no content to look forward to? I'll still take it. I ain't going to lie. I'll still take it. But they're not going to make any money. You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole thing, is like, so you're not going to be releasing new skins and new maps and new weapons. It's like, no, we're going to be working on another single player game. It's like, okay, well, you know, I think that's what made Sony kind of realize, like, we just have to cancel it because they're not going to make us money. And, you know, that a successful live service is meant to make money year after year after year. So I had this kind of chip on my shoulder that this Last of Us multiplayer game never happened. And yet I'm sitting here and I'm watching Sony market Marathon, a game that, again, I don't think looks bad. I'll give it the time of day. I will try it, and maybe I will like it, but I don't know, man. I feel like I've been burned by The Last of Us more than once. And any other live service project that was in development, you know, like, I have to question, like, Ghost of Tsushima Legends was awesome. Not a live service, but an awesome multiplayer extension. We doing anything with that? I don't want to say, I don't want to, like, get snarky and be like, no, of course we're not, because they might. But it's like, you guys are on to something great here. Like, Ghost of Tsushima Legends was fantastic and quite shocking how good Sucker Punch was at, like, we can make a multiplayer experience that's really, really solid in this universe. The way that they handled gear, the way that they handled leveling. And it's just like, now that's a multiplayer experience I would love to dive deeper into. And I just have this, like, feeling they're going to be like, nah. And this is what frustrates me, is it feels like from a play, and I'm just saying that I'm speaking from the perspective of a PlayStation player. It feels like the multiplayer experiences that I would personally be getting super excited for and enthusiastic about and just, like, ready to throw my money down, bro. It feels like they're just being either neglected or canceled, or, you know, and just being wiped away. And then they're being replaced with these games where I'm like, okay, like, I'll give it a shot, but man, I really wish it was something else. And I think that there are many other people who feel that way, where it's like, Sony, we want something else from you in this space, and you're not providing it for whatever reason. And I think that's where the extra layer of, that's the manufactured frustration that I see being put towards Marathon right now. is there's genuine frustration from Bungie players who are like, I'm not into extraction shooters, but then there's a manufactured frustration where it's like, Sony, what the hell? You know? And I feel like that is a little bit unfair for Bungie, but Bungie chose to get in bed with Sony. So it's like, okay, you're saying, MBG, you're missing the even simpler reality. Marathon is a standard extraction shooter, no unique hook. Extraction shooters are incompatible with mass appeal. Guaranteed failure. Well, that guaranteed failure, I think, can only be measured against the expectation. Now, if we had some kind of idea of what Sony's expectation is, we would be able to, I would be able to tell you definitively if it's going to be a guaranteed failure or not. But I don't know. Wasn't it leaked that they were working on a full-fledged multiplayer for Ghost of Tsushima or Ghost Legends? There were job listings that made it very clear Sucker Punch is working on some kind of multiplayer thing, but it's been years since we heard anything. No more job listings stating that. So one of two things either happened. They were working on something that was going to lean more into the multiplayer side of the Ghost of Tsushima universe, and they canceled it, or they've been working on it this whole time, and we're going to find out not too long from now with, the launch of Ghost of Yotei coming up. And I hope it's that. I hope it's that. I don't know, man. I try not to be so down, like I know I come off as being down and being frustrated. And I want to make it clear, like, I'm loving gaming right now. I know it doesn't seem like it. Trust me, there's something I would love to talk to you guys about right now, but I can't. But I'm loving gaming right now. It's just that when I'm focused on what PlayStation's doing, there is just it is just frustrating to know that it feels like half the stuff that we could have got or that we could get just simply doesn't exist for one reason or another. And even the thing that did exist that was supposed to be like, this is it got erased before it was even given a chance. And it's frustrating, man. It's still frustrating. Lux, you're saying Schedule 1 had 400K plus day one Steam developed by one guy, LOL. Dude, I know. And that's the crazier reality of all this is you have games being released by a single developer, or very, very small teams of developers that are running laps. I mean, not even running laps, but just existing on different fucking planets compared to some of these other games. And I mean, this, it kind of speaks to what Gavin was saying earlier, where it's like, you got to have some level of sympathy for these developers where they're probably sitting there being like, what the fuck? Like, what do people even want? Like, we don't even know what to do anymore, and I get it. I'm not a developer, but if I was tasked with developing a game tomorrow or coming up with ideas for games that are going to be big hits, it's, I would, I was gonna say I'd pull my hair out, but luckily I don't have any more hair. So I don't know, man. I'd be losing my mind. Ice Queen Gaming, a member for 15 months, says, MBG, all I see is Sony coming to Bungie Studio and telling them you're coming under PlayStation Studios. No worries about that. Well, I don't know how that's gonna work, right? If the last we heard about Bungie and Sony from a business perspective is that basically Bungie has to hit certain numbers, and as long as they can hit those numbers, Sony can't interfere or absorb them. Now, that already happened to a degree, but it still seems like Marathon is being left to its own devices. So Marathon's being left to its own devices. And so I'm not really sure if if Sony's just kind of making it seem that way, or if Sony really does right now have full control of Bungie and they're just trying, they're actually pulling all the strings. I'm not sure. I got insider access to Knack 3. Damn, dude, you spoiled it. No, I can't even do that. Xbox is dying. I can't even give a time frame. So I will tell you this. I will tell you this. There are multiple things I'm going to be talking about. That's all I can say. So, when I talk about one thing, that isn't necessarily what I'm referring to when I'm teasing another, if that makes sense. So, um, Goat Simulator 5. Wait, there was a 4? All right. We have Sean Mitchell with a super chat, and he says, "What's up, MBG and gang? Listening to you from the gym today. Pretty soothing while being on an intense cut for my holidays. Well, I'm glad I could soothe you while you're in the gym, Sean. I appreciate you. I appreciate you stopping by to drop a super chat too. That's very kind of you, man. Hope your workout. You sent that a little while ago, so I don't know if you're still working out, but I hope it went well or is going well." And we have Roberto. He says, "MBG, are you going to watch The Last of Us tonight on Max? Have you thought about doing a stream during the episode?" How would I do that, Roberto? Not watch it. I mean, I was planning on watching the episode with Mrs. MBG, hopefully. Um, but how would you stream? Isn't that? I mean, that would immediately get copyrighted. I would have to sit there in silence and watch it with you guys, right? That's pretty much how it would have to work, where we're just sitting there in silence watching it together. I wouldn't. No, for me, it wouldn't be through Discord. I don't use Discord. That's why nobody does it. It's a little awkward. It would be. It would be, bro. That's tantalizing. I'm not gonna lie. That is a tantalizing prospect. Hold on. We should do a Terminator 1 watch along. I mean, I don't like the idea of basically sitting there in silence. And I guess you guys would hear my reactions. But the idea is nobody's in silence. Like, you're not actually in silence because you're watching. You are watching. I don't know. That's a good idea, man. I didn't think about that. That would be a hell of a, that would be so toxic. Why don't I have a Patreon for other content? Frankly, because I don't know what other content to do. Zoom. Well, here's the idea, right? The idea is, and this is how I'm imagining it in my head. I'm like, imagine right now, I'm on the HBO or the Max app. Well, that's true. You literally just described the other content. That's true. But I don't know, man. I don't know that I would want to paywall that. That's the biggest thing I don't know if you guys have noticed I've been struggling with this. I don't know what content to paywall, if any, because I don't know, man. I feel like members don't really care about paywalled content. Like if anything, like my members want to see me try to have a greater reach with anything I do. But I mean, it's a thought. It's a thought, you know? But there will still be members content in the future. There will be some stuff that, I'm always going to feel obligated to do something. It just might be much further. It might be further and few in between, but a little something as like a kind of, rather than try to make it like, and I know this sounds antithetical, but it's like, rather than try to make it an incentive, I want to make it just a, like, kind of like a thank you, and I've always wanted. See, I realized, like, when I started this channel, I've always wanted people just to support because they want to support. You know what I mean? Like, they really appreciate what I'm doing here, and they like what I'm doing, and they want to support. And I feel like that's what pretty much everybody does, and I'm very thankful for that. You know, I at this point in time, I want to try to grow and have a greater reach while simultaneously just being myself. You know, and I feel like that's a little tough sometimes because I can be a very stubborn person, and I can be a fickle person at times as well. You guys know this. Anybody else hearing beeping? anybody else hearing beeping? I don't know. What copyright issue would you have? Just asking. Well, the way it would work is, let's just say right now, let's say at 3:00 today. That's Corey's like, I come in to invest in boss. Let's say that the Last of Us season 2 episode 1 is premiering in 30 minutes. It's not. I think it's later tonight. But let's just say it's in 30 minutes. I will have the app up in front of me to watch it. And you guys will watch it you have it up in front of you guys as well. I have headphones on. The only thing you see is me sitting here watching it. Well, no, not even watching. Like, I'm just sitting here staring at the screen in front of me. You can't see my screen. And you can't hear the audio. Like, I'm not playing the audio of the episode through the stream. You literally just hear me and my voice reacting to what we're technically watching together at the same time. Does that make sense? So that's why it's if you're somebody who's tuning in and not aware of what's going on, it seems really weird. But that's the thing. We all have to be in synchronization. That's the big problem with it, is we have to basically start it at the same exact time, or else people are going to be ahead or behind or something. So that's like kind of the big, put a timer up, 6.5 hours away. Is that when it's premiering? Yeah, I mean, I'm so overwhelmed right now with the amount of content like I'm consuming and trying to keep up with, dude. I'm trying to maintain my grip. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie, man. Like, oof. I don't know. It sounds a bit. I just, I've never done it before. I have to touch grass, bro. I don't even have time to touch grass. I don't know how to. I guess I would be afraid to do that because I'm afraid that I'm gonna mess it up. You know, like something's gonna go wrong. Also, like, I know that these like places like Max, they still run ads. So it's like, unless you get like the more premium, like what then? You know, I don't know if I would do a watch along. I think I'd feel more comfortable maybe just doing like a spoiler cast or something. You know, like a bonus discussion, which would be cool. Because at that point, I would know anybody who's there. We all watch the episode and we want to talk about what happened. But people keep mentioning Discord. I don't have a Discord. I don't use Discord. I'll never use Discord. Just go outside, put your hands on grass. Mission accomplished. Oh, Lux, I'm sorry, man. I forgot to read your last super chat here. My bad. You're saying here, I don't think Naughty Dog live service game would have done that great. Would have got a few Last of Us fans playing it, but that would be about it. I mean, you could be right, but I guess I had this level of faith in the Last of Us multiplayer because I just feel like there's not really anything out there quite like it. Maybe the closest thing would be like, God, like The Division, right? To a degree. Corey, you're saying you just got a Pro. Any recommendations? Corey just got the Pro. Well, I'm trying to think. I don't think you're into Demon Souls, right? I see people immediately recommending Assassin's Creed Shadows. I mean, Assassin's Creed Shadows seems to be the best looking game on the Pro, from what I can gather. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is another one that apparently I didn't check that one out myself, but I saw Sony just went out of their way to put up like a blog post. Indiana Jones soon. They did say that's going to be Pro enhanced. Cyberpunk. Who said Gollum? Stellar Blade. Yeah, Stellar Blade is one that got a really big pro upgrade. I didn't go back to play that one either, but I heard that one's really good. I did play God of War Ragnarok for a little while, and you can see a difference, but it's not. I will admit, Ragnarok doesn't have that big of a difference. You get basically a higher frame rate. I think it goes up to like 90 or 100 frames. In terms of visuals, I feel like Ragnarok basically looks the same. Spider-Man 2 is a good one. Rise of the Ronin's Pro Enhanced. I don't know if you're into the Horizon games, Corey, but Forbidden West looks nuts on the PS5 Pro as well. Let me see. I'm trying to remember. Dude, there's this Terminator game being advertised to me right now called Terminator Survivors. It's coming out apparently this year. It's being true to the legend. This is product description. Terminator Survivors on PS5. Step into the shoes of a survivor in a post-apocalyptic Judgment Day open world where you can either go solo or team up with friends to gather resources and establish a stronghold for humanity. However, danger lurks around every corner as Skynet's machines and competing human factions are on the hunt for you. About the game, solo or in co-op, play as a group of survivors in this survival open world. Return to the iconic Terminator universe. Set in the aftermath of Judgment Day, it's been 4 years since the day humanity nearly perished. Huh. Like, it sounds like it could be good. It sounds like The Last of Us Online. Save us, Terminator. I'm just skeptical because it's developed by Nacon. And it's first person. Oh, okay. So it's a first person game. They do have co-op. And apparently it's being developed by Nacon Studio Milan. So I don't know. I'm sorry, that was really random and had nothing to do with I guess it'll be PS5 Pro Enhanced. But I just got done playing Terminator Resistance, and this popped up, and I'm like, okay, huh? Will it be garbage though? Nacon are scammers. There's a trailer for it. I think I saw that trailer a while ago, Sean. But there's no game. Like, they're not showing gameplay, which is concerning. Like, I want to be excited. Because I don't know. I just got done playing Terminator Resistance, and I'm just in such a Terminator mood. You know. So it's cool, the idea of getting another game, but I like the idea of it being co-op too. But it could be just garbage. They screwed over Frogwares, but Frogwares won their legal battle. Was Resistance any good? It was okay to good. Like, it's rough around the edges. I'm not gonna lie. I played the DLC for it. I did get the platinum, but I wanted to get the DLC trophy so I could have 100%. If you like the Terminator, yeah, it's a decent play. I would agree with that, Hunter. If you like the Terminator universe, I think you'll like this game. But it's definitely rough around the edges. But it's just, as long as you're not going into it expecting AAA polish and, a huge AAA game as a first person shooter, I think you'll be fine. But I will say this, if you're not a fan of the Terminator universe, you probably won't enjoy this game. Terminator Resistance, that is. All right, so I'm looking at a list of pro games here. Alan Wake 2, Dragon's Dogma 2, Lies of P, Resident Evil 4, Rise of the Ronin, Mortal Kombat 1, Gran Turismo 7, Monster Hunter Wilds, Diablo 4, Dead Island 2, Demon's Souls, Horizon Forbidden West, Stellar Blade, Dragon Age, Star Wars Outlaws, Hogwarts Legacy, Fortnite. There you go, Corey. Fortnite. FC25, God of War Ragnarok, FF7 Rebirth, Spider-Man 2, No Man's Sky, the finals. I'm sure there's more games. I think that's an older list of PS5 Pro games, but I think Corey's going to play. He's going to play Fortnite. I think that's what he was worried about. Kazan, the first Berserker. State of Emergency, The Warriors, GTA, Rockstar's the background to make the perfect EFNY game. You got to look to see what's coming out. Your problem is you don't have the extra money to buy many new games. Yeah, that's the struggle, man. Oh, an Escape from New York game. The struggle is that there are a lot of new games coming out, but like I said, they're all kind of coming out in a short window. So I think a lot of people are going to have to make decisions on what games they're really going to want to make sure they can buy and play versus what games might have to take a back seat and wait. Guys, hold on one sec. Sorry about that. Hell is Us. Yeah, that one looks like it's going to be pretty good. I saw that. Apparently, a new prototype game is being made. Come on, boss. Come on. Come get your string. Really? Okay. All right. Sorry, boss was playing with his shoelace over there, and I wanted to bring it over, but apparently he doesn't want to do it on camera, so that's fine. So apparently, Bungie confirmed that Marathon will not have proximity chat because it would be way too toxic. I saw that this was a big thing people were really frustrated about, and they felt like proximity chat is a must for this type of game. And people feel like Bungie are basically being bitches right now by being like, it's too toxic. Yeah, I mean, it's right. Like, I mean, of course, there's going to be some level of toxicity, but for God's sake, man, like, what are you doing? I mean, this is one of those things where it's like, it's a good thing they're saying it now. You have time to change that. You have time to change, that aspect of the game and win people over, because I think a lot of people were immediately turned off by that. I wish I could show you guys boss right now. He's being too damn cute. He's just like completely laying on the side, just playing with the string. What are you doing? He's like, damn it, you caught me. You caught me being cute. Take a look at the two lead developers and you'll know why. Who are the lead developers, Russell? Let me know. Tell me why. Have we spoken about single player games yet? Just got back from dinner. We have a little bit. He saves his cute for off camera. Sometimes you can catch it when he's on camera. I mean, the general discussion I was basically trying to have, or when I was trying to bring up single player games, is that like Sony's focus on single player games really, I think, has proven to be their saving grace. I think that Sony's made some mistakes, no doubt about it, but people, like, no matter how upset somebody might be right now at Marathon and the fact that, like, damn, Sony, this is why you bought Bungie, like, we have Death Stranding coming in just a few months, and then later this year we have Ghost of Yotei, and it's like, yeah, that to me is so vital. Like, I can't even imagine how I would feel about PlayStation right now if those games weren't coming. There are many other games I'm looking forward to outside of those, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, those two games are like, those are why I'm here on PlayStation. And Lost Soul Aside as well. Yeah, I keep forgetting about that game. But, these are the games that brought me back to PlayStation. And these are the games that are going to keep me here. And these are the games that I want to continue to see Sony invest in. And to be fair, they've never strayed away from that. Even when Sony was saying like we're going to have 12 live service games by 2026, they still were saying, we're not moving away from single player games. Like we're always going to do our single player games. Like they seem to understand that is their foundation for PlayStation. And I'm happy about that because, it could have, I know some people don't believe it, but it could have been worse. We could have gotten leadership in there that's like, screw single player games. We're going all literally all multiplayer. Yeah, they did get a bit distracted, but I'm I don't know, man. We got some good times ahead, seemingly. I wish I could be more yeah, we got some good times ahead. Feels good, man. By the way, well, I'm not trying to like overhype anything. Xbox is dying. It's the name though. No, I'm not trying to overhype anything. I'm just saying like there's a lot of great games coming, man. And I think that I don't know. I feel like for me anyway, I'm kind of at like that turning point where like, okay, it was like that slow build up on the roller coaster and you're finally at that peak and now you're going to start going down in a good way. My username has run its course, I think. Xbox is basically full third party now. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I think we can all agree with that mostly. Yeah. Sly Cooper reboot, bro. What was so funny is there was all these rumors about a Sly Cooper resurgence, and my God, man, Sucker Punch just flat out came out and said we're not making Sly Cooper, and it just crushed so many dreams. Do you guys remember that? They were like, we're not making Infamous, we're not making Sly Cooper. Okay, you're saying, didn't you suggest the same thing was happening back in 2020? Are you talking about like the roller coaster reference? Is that what you mean? Sly Cooper Resurgence sounds like a great title. Oh, or are you talking about Xbox third party thing? Oh, no, you're talking about the roller coaster reference. Yeah, that was you're not wrong about that. But it's a little bit different cuz I definitely thought so my thought process when it comes to PlayStation in 2020 going into 2021 was I didn't think 2020 was the high point, which was very foolish of me because for some reason, I did not realize the artificial inflation that everything was getting when it comes to gaming due to the pandemic. So I didn't think, do I like your profile picture? I don't even know who that is. I'm concerned. But I thought 2020 was just the beginning. I thought things were going to climb even higher in 2021 for PlayStation, and even higher in 22 and 23 and 24, and it didn't quite go that way. But I don't know, man. I don't think like there's still going to be failures. There's not just for PlayStation. From an industry-wide point of view, there's still going to be failures. There's going to be losers. There's going to be controversies. There's going to be things that go wrong. But generally speaking, I don't know. I'm feeling right now, and I think this is how it's going to be for pretty much the rest of the year. I feel totally overwhelmed with the amount of games I'm trying to juggle and play and consume and get everything out of. Um, may not seem like it now, but when when I look at not just the remainder of April, but I look at going into May and then June and then all the games that don't actually have release dates yet, but are targeting July, August, September, October, November. You know, it's Michael Does Life. I think I heard of him before. And it's a good problem to have, you know? It is a good problem to have. I won't lie. Saying Doom, Expedition 33, Forza, Days Gone Remastered. I mean, it's a lot, dude. What's crazy is all those games I just mentioned are all in like a month of one. Not even a month. They're all in like 3 weeks of one another. Like, see, that's what I mean, bro. Like, what the hell? Like, those 4 games are all in like 3 weeks of one another. That's wild. That's wild. Next year's going to be crazy too. Soros, Wolverine, Phantom Blade Zero. That's why it's okay for PlayStation to take a step back, give their studios time to cook without PS fans knocking at their doors, wondering where the games are. I agree with that. Yeah. I mean, occasionally we do get some surprises, man. Like, I remember prior to the reveal of Soros, like, I was asked multiple times, like, when I think we're going to see Housemarque's next game. And I'm like, probably PlayStation 6 or at the very end of this generation. And instead, it's like, no, dude, here's our new game. You're going to see more this year and it's coming out next year. And I'm like, oh. I mean, I guess 2026 could be seen as like closer to the end of the generation, but I wasn't expecting to hear from Housemarque anytime soon. And it was a nice little surprise where it's like, actually, we're kind of ready to show you now. I'm like, this is great. This is great. It's weird seeing Forza listed on the PSN. I'm excited for Forza, man. Like I said, when we were it's funny because I think it was in the last members lounge I did. I was reacting to like some of my oldest videos from like 2018, and I was playing Forza Horizon 4 in the background. And I told people like, dude, I love that game. I got every achievement in Forza Horizon 4. No lie, PXP saved me during the lockdowns, man. Thank you. Well, that's awesome to hear. Yeah, PXP, good times. That was the year I started streaming. It was so weird. I actually no, I did stream in 2019. I remember there was a short period of time where I did just stream gameplay. And I've thought about trying to get back into that, but I'm nervous about it because I don't think there's any way around it. Like, I would have to make a second channel to do that. I could not oversaturate this channel where it's like we're doing videos, we're doing discussion streams, and we're doing full gameplay live streams. But I also still do want to do gameplay live streams here, you know, where it's like when certain new games drop, I want to do a little bit of gameplay of it here, you know. And I also sometimes do members gameplay content. But I remember back in like 2019, I did full playthroughs of a couple games. I think I did a full playthrough of The Order 1886. I remember I did a full playthrough, and this scared me away from streaming games live, just so you know. Meet the cheater knows. I decided at your recommendation of the recommendation of the audience, the next game you should stream is Shadow of the Colossus. And I thought the game looked really good. What I was not prepared for is nobody told me that basically the entire game is a giant puzzle. Like, every boss battle is a giant puzzle. You have to figure out how to take it down. And I felt so stressed while I was streaming that because I just felt like I'm an idiot. I can't, and it's not that I'm an idiot, but it's like, it was driving me nuts knowing that people knew what I was supposed to do and they're just waiting to see how long it takes me to figure it out. And I'm like, I'm too focused on screwing up that I'm just like completely losing sight of like what I'm actually supposed to do. And then I end up like referring to the chat and they help me solve it. And then I feel like shit. And I remember specifically the end of Shadow of the Colossus, that final boss fight, I was like, I just couldn't do it. And I was like panicking. I'm like, bro, I am live on stream right now and I can't get my shit together. And that kind of scared me away from streaming gameplay because it stressed me out. I'm like, this is a lot. But I think maybe I was just taking it too seriously, where it's like, it was because I was caught off guard, dude. It's because I thought it was like an action game. And it kind of is, but I had no idea like the boss battles themselves were like puzzles you had to figure out. It's basically, I mean, let's face it, Shadow of the Colossus is basically a puzzle game. And I don't know. I would like to start streaming games more though. I will be. You said returnable, but I'm assuming you meant Returnal, Fred. Stream Returnal. Yeah, guys, if you haven't already, please hit that like button. It definitely helps the streams out. Yo, I remember I remember I streamed Death Stranding a couple times, I think, as well. I'm just dude, listen, I don't want to talk about Split Fiction. JMR, I don't want to talk about Split Fiction. So there are just some times in life when you overextend your reach. You overextend your reach. MBG Plus Premium. That sounds like a bit much, Rudy. There are times in life where you overextend your reach. And I can assure you with Split Fiction, I overextended my reach. People always ask me, like, did you ever play It Takes Two? And I'm like, I tried to. I didn't like it very much. Like, I just didn't like, and I always feel awkward because it feels like such a unpopular opinion. Like, bro, that game won Game of the Year. What do you mean you don't like it? I'm like, I didn't like it. I don't know if it was too puzzle heavy or what, but I just didn't like it. It's like it's nothing like it's not like it's not like I didn't like it where it's like this is a bad game. I just didn't like it. That's it. I just didn't enjoy myself while playing it. And so I stopped playing it. And I decided to give Split Fiction a chance. And I knew I shouldn't have. I was like, dude, you've been down this road before. You know this game's not going to be for you. But I'm like, I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm just like, I can't do this. Like, I can't do this game. I just can't do it. Shadow Gamer, no, bro. Like, will you stop? So, I'm trying to be more open. I'm trying to be more open with the games I'm trying and playing. But I'm also trying to understand that, like, there are just going to be times where my gut is correct. You think that's genuinely one of my wildest takes? See, that's what's weird. Is like, I'm definitely not trying to do that thing where it's like, isn't that crazy that I have that opinion? Like, no, like, I mean, I'm just being totally real and like I'm not saying I'm going to not finish the game. I'm just saying I'm putting on the back burner for now because I don't know, man. I was not enjoying myself. And, I do feel strange because it seems like so many other people are very much enjoying themselves. And I always feel weird when that happens. I'm like, what? Like, it makes me feel like, what am I missing? What am I missing? You're saying don't quit. Well, the biggest reason it's on the back burner right now is because I have other priorities when it comes to games I'm playing. But at some point, I'm not one to usually just on games where I get this far, because I think I'm more than halfway through. It's rare that I quit games like that deep. Like you're like 50 or 60 or 70. I think I'm like 60, 65% done. Usually I just see it through to the end. But you're saying drop it and don't come back? No, I never did check out that demo, Fred. What's so special about it? Does it just look like mind-blowingly good? You know better than anybody what you like. I kept dying, that's why I dropped it. No, it's not even that. Like, because dying doesn't feel punishing in that game. I just realized like it's a giant puzzle game, man. I hate puzzle games. I hate puzzles in games. Like it's like that game, It's apparently the highest rated game of the year. It just came out on PlayStation Plus. Blue something? What's it called? Blueprints, I think. Yeah. Like apparently that's just a puzzle game. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Indiana Jones is a puzzle game. Well, it also depends, right? Like puzzle games that feel like they don't like if you give me puzzles that I can solve relatively quickly and don't get hung up on, that's fine, right? The so like if I was playing something like Indiana Jones, which I'm planning on playing that game, it's a single player game, and if it's like if I'm doing a puzzle and I can't solve it, I'll just look it up and quickly get it done and move on. One of the biggest problems with split fiction is you're trying to solve a puzzle with somebody else. So it's more complicated to be like, oh wait, I got to look this up, because then you have to relay the instructions to somebody else if you get stuck on something. Um, Indiana Jones has a mode that helps with puzzle difficulty. Okay, I mean, it depends on. I mean, how puzzle heavy are we talking here? Because everything I've seen in Indiana Jones, it looks pretty action heavy as well. Like I don't know. I mean, from what I saw, it doesn't look like it was a. Of course, there's going to be puzzles. I mean, it's Indiana Jones, so I'm expecting like some puzzles. Like even when I play Uncharted, there's puzzles. Well, I'll be able to judge it for myself. I'm going to be playing Indiana Jones, so I'll let you know what I think. I mean, I'm hoping it's good, man. I've heard good things about it. I haven't really heard. I mean, I've seen some people somewhat down on it, but I haven't heard anybody like saying it's just like a bad, unfun game or something like that. Rudy, you saying you think it's a little bit overrated? El Unico says it's great, fantastic. Depends on how much side stuff you do. More side stuff, more puzzles. Okay. How long is Indiana Jones? Is it a long game? It's a fun game. I liked it. I wouldn't say it's overrated. You heard Blueprints is overrated. I mean, see, a game like Blueprints, I'm never gonna play because that's literally just a puzzle game. It's specifically a puzzle game. It's like I don't know. Some people like that. Some people love puzzle, like just pure puzzle games. I can't do that. The thing I've noticed with video games, and I learned this about myself over time, is that pacing is so critical to me, dude. Especially as I get older. Pacing of a game matters. Like the worst thing I experience. You know what makes me want to put down a game? And I'm not even saying in some dramatic way where it's like I'm never playing it again. But I mean, just literally, it's like, okay, I'm done. Is when I get hung up on something and I feel like I'm not progressing. Like I'm just stuck. That makes me want to not it just makes me want to turn it off and go do something else or play something else. Um that's just, I don't, and I notice it's gotten worse as I've gotten older. MBG, check out the engine for Crimson Desert. Makes fog, particles, water physics look amazing. The engine is in-house, and the reason why Crimson Desert has continuously been delayed. Ooh. Okay. What are they cooking up over there, man? We got ourselves a Decima engine competitor. 20 to 30 hours for the main game. Took you 50 plus to do everything. Wow, that's a lot longer than I expected. Well, see, Eternal's saying the main story is around 12 to 15 hours. 100% can go to 30 hours. Okay. It seems like it varies quite a bit. Beat the Cheater. Did you get stuck on a lot of puzzles? Carlos, you're saying Indiana Jones is a good game, but it's not for me on a technical level. It's awesome. The id Tech 7 performance is top notch, best in the industry. It also has ray tracing and path tracing on PC. I am really curious to see how it's going to look on PS5 Pro. I mean, I've heard that Indiana Jones is a very good looking game, so we'll see. See, I'm not the biggest fan of Indiana Jones. Like, I just never have been. But I don't know. I'm curious to see how I feel about the game compared to the movies. You think I will be after the game? I mean, yeah, that's the thing. Is like the idea of a Indiana Jones game. I think almost sounds better to me than the movies. Just because it's like I feel like I would rather play like what's going on. You know, a lot of the times. MBG, judge it for yourself. It makes me wonder what damage it could do to UE5 if they keep advancing the engine and allowing other companies to utilize it. Yeah, I mean UE5 seems to still be the dominant engine, but I heard that UE5 has a lot of issues. Indiana took you 3 days, 6 hours, 14 minutes to 100% it. Like 78 hours. You took your time. Okay. That's like saying you don't like Star Wars, MBG. I hate Star Wars. No, I'm just kidding. Now, I really enjoyed Star Wars when I was younger. As an adult, I don't enjoy it nearly as much. Just being honest. Like I guess what I mean to say is like I would have stuck with Star Wars, but it started going in directions and I'm like I'm good. You know? Like I tried to stick with it, but really and I know it sounds cliche, but it really was like when they handed it over to Disney. I still stuck with it for a bit, but then I was very quickly like I'm all right. I'm good. I didn't see the newer Indiana Jones movies. Are they as bad as people say? What about the last Indiana Jones movie came out like a year or two ago? Is it really as bad as they say? Straight up Dookie water. I need to know what makes it so bad. Is it? It's not because he's old, right? Like that's not what makes it bad. What is it? What is it that makes it so? Because it's so funny, dude. Like you can't unsee. Wow, that's bad. You're saying you can't unsee it. That's bad, bad. That makes me more interested in watching it. Sounds smart. You're saying you like them. That's interesting. Seems to be the unpopular opinion. The CGI for young Harrison Ford jarring in the flashbacks. Wait, they CGI young Harrison Ford? Wait, is that like that weird CG where it's actually him, but they CG him in like real time or some shit? I don't know. Like it's actually him acting, but they just make him literally look younger. Oh, that's weird. That's so that's so creepy. I wonder what that must be like. Like I don't know how old I'm gonna live to be, but if I live to be like 78, you know, I look back at like my 30-year-old self. I'm like, damn, what happened? Like Cavill's mustache. Oh man, never forget. That's so crazy to me that they had to CGI his upper lip to get rid of his mustache. Like it's nothing like the Uncharted games. Not action heavy at all. It's all about exploration. I'm going to be very interested to see how I feel about that then, because I'm not going to lie to you. Like most of what you guys have said about it make me feel like I'm not going to like it. Like I'm 50-50 on exploration. I'm basically 50-50 on exploration. I'm 50-50 on puzzles. It all comes down to how it's handled. Exploration that feels not overwhelming to me, I like. I like the feeling of exploring. I don't like the feeling of being overwhelmed by the amount there is to explore. Bigger in that case to me is not always better. More is not always better necessarily. Puzzles are the same thing. Puzzles I don't mind as long as they're not like frustratingly annoying and I can just spend a minute, 3 minutes or so with it and then I move on. I mean, if there's puzzles in this game that's like, bro, you're gonna be sitting there for 10 minutes, I'm gonna fucking be mad. Because I hate that. Like, I can't stand puzzles that where I just it's and then you go look it up and you're like and then you question like is it me? Like, am I this stupid? It's like you might be. You're the reason, MBG. You're the reason why characters in God of War Ragnarok are screaming at you what you need to do. You love puzzles. You've never been stumped. What kept you going in Death Stranding? It seems like a lot of exploring. I think the thing about Death Stranding is I will be clear, I was very overwhelmed at moments in Death Stranding, but it was kind of like I don't know, it was kind of easy because it felt like, well, the whole point is I'm supposed to be walking around, going to different points. And if I see something, I may as well just go check it out and it's just going to be a longer path around, you know what I mean? But yeah, Death Stranding there were definitely times where I got overwhelmed. It all depends on my approach with a game. Like I've also noticed that my mindset has to be kind of fine-tuned sometimes where one of the most difficult things these days. Oh, just to be clear, I just read a message from my wife. Just to be clear, my wife is not bad at split fiction because she thinks that she thinks you guys are blaming her as my reason. No, she's not bad at it. Like we're pretty much the same, almost at it. If anything, there are moments where she's doing better than me, and I'm getting hung up on shit, and I'm like, what the hell am I doing wrong? I'm telling you, the whole thing with split fiction is it combines not only puzzle, you have to solve puzzles, but you have to do it with somebody else, and you got to work together. And it's like the thing about split fiction that has killed me is like I keep feeling like every time I start to get into a flow, I stop. I stop because they're like, oh, here's like 3 more puzzles you got to solve, and I'm like, I don't want to. I mean, can I just keep going? And that's what kills it for me. And I don't know if that changes later in the game. You don't think you've ever heard of someone having a bad time playing split fiction? Well, there are good moments for sure. Like that's the thing is like there are very good moments in split fiction where I'm like I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it and then it just comes to a complete halt where it's like, "Oh, now you're stuck on like 3 different puzzles." And I'm like, "Ah, okay." And that it makes me just feel like, "Okay, well the fun's over." Now here comes the frustration. But yeah, when it comes to games, man, like sometimes it just takes me a little bit of time to get into the right frame of mind to be able to embrace what the game is offering and what it's trying to do. And um, you know, it's it could be a complicated thing sometimes. It's a complicated thing, you know, video games. They're a complex thing. El Unico, you're saying that's what you love about puzzles. It makes you stop and think. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I don't like flexing my brain like that, bro. Show us a video or it didn't happen. Mandatory co-op isn't the best idea these days. No, like I think so. The one section in that game that I thought was pretty challenging, where it's like, oh, okay, like you really got to be in sync with the person you're playing with. For those who have played Split Fiction, is the bomb section. It's a sideshow thing where it's supposed to be like a game show, and you have to make it from point A to point B through like an obstacle course while holding a bomb, and you have to throw the bomb back and forth because it has a timer, and the timer only resets when you throw it, you know? And so it's like a synchronization thing where it's like you gotta be on point. Yeah, and you gotta be in sync. And we got through that pretty quick. I was checking the trophies, and there's a trophy to complete that whole section without the bomb blowing up once. I'm like, that's pretty challenging. Like, I was actually really surprised. I'm like, that's a hard ass trophy to get. 'Cause I was looking at all the other trophies. I'm like, these all seem pretty easy. And then that one just out of nowhere seems like kind of like, oh, okay. So that's like the get good mode right there. But we got through that pretty quick. And I was like, that stuff like that, I kind of like, where it's like, it's more of like a skill thing, I guess. Your mind has to be in the right place for puzzles. You think you just got to that part with your friend? Yeah, it's pretty cool. I like the little side areas that they do. They're like pretty. They definitely break up the pace. I'll let you guys know if I return to it and end up beating it. Like there are definitely moments in Split Fiction that I've enjoyed, but I've learned with that game, like I have to. That's definitely a game. Here's the thing that really caught me off guard about Split Fiction. You want to know what really caught me off guard? How long it is. I'm like, I guess I shouldn't be that shocked considering it's like a $50 game, but I'm like, bro, I expected this to be like a 5 or 6 hour game. And I think it's like 12 or 13 or something. I'm like, what? You ready for Sorrow's trophies? Oh, listen, I'm ready. Just for the love of God, Housemark, please do not put RNG glyphs, randomly generated glyphs that I got to search for through each level. Please, God, if they do that again, I'm going to be pissed. They got to figure out something more reasonable than that. 14 hours. Yeah, I'm shocked. I'm like, dude, this game's long as hell. Like for the type of game it is, it being a purely co-op game. I'm like, that's good. Like I'm not complaining about it, but it's very surprising to me. We're like, okay, I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna approach this. Because I think I'm like 8 hours in or something, and I'm like, what? How are we not done? Story's pretty cool too. I do like the story in Split Fiction. Why are we still here? Just to suffer. Returnal was an awesome game, and I'm gonna have to like one day I'm gonna have to go over a list. I think I'm 2 platinums away from reaching 50 platinums. And maybe I'll make like maybe I could compile a list of like top 5. I do like a top 5 list for platinums, like top 5 funnest platinums, top 5 most annoying platinums, top 5 platinums I'm most proud of, something like that. Number 1 most proud platinum, Bluey game. You beat Portal 2 co-op mode with a guy and we never spoke to each other, just pings. He's still on my friends list. That's funny. Sage Infinite likes that idea. He likes the platinum. Top 5 platinums idea. Yeah, that would be a good way to celebrate it. I do need 2 more platinums though. That's the thing. You just got the Cuphead platinum? Yeah, that sounds like a nightmare. That sounds like a nightmare, dude. Yeah, I remember I tried playing Cuphead and I got filtered out. I'm not gonna lie. I think I got to like the second level or the third level, and I'm like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I think it was a skill issue too. You platinumed Animal well. So what's really, really weird is I saw that with Days Gone Remastered, you can auto pop the trophies, right? And I went to go look at my save data, and Days Gone wasn't there. I'm like, why? Like, why isn't it there? I was like, all right, maybe it didn't save to the cloud. Maybe it's still on my PS4 Pro. So I like hooked my PS4 Pro up to see if it was still there. It wasn't there. I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, I platinum this game. So I went to go check my trophies. It's like, yep, there it is. Days Gone. There's your platinum. I'm like, where's my save file? And so I think they did add some new trophies that you cannot instantly platinum. But yeah, man, I don't know. I don't I'm gonna have to start completely over, which is okay, I guess. But it's the thing that is kind of annoying is I remember it took me a long time to get the platinum. It took me a long time to get the platinum for Days Gone. It took me over 100 hours. I'm like, bro, I want to replay Days Gone, but I don't know that I want to re-platinum it. But maybe I will. I gotta say, I don't know. I'm so scared. I'm so scared about the amount of games coming up, man. This is why I'm like, I probably should just, I'm gonna have to make a second channel where I'm just sitting here streaming games all day, bro. It's gonna have to happen at some point if I want to keep up. Your number one platinum is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, easy the most rare I have. Yeah, that has to be one of the most rare because it's like a 200 plus hour. Fred, you're saying you're okay with replaying Days Gone Remastered beginning to end all over again? I mean, it's been so long since I played it that like I forgot so much about it that I'm okay with that as well. But that's the one thing I do remember is it was a longer game. It took a while. I think the cleanup is what took the longest. I'm excited for the Horde Assault mode too. I'm gonna be talking more about Days Gone when we get closer to the launch. Yeah, I'm very excited for it. Shadow of the Colossus remake is one of your favorite platinums. Yeah, I did. Like I said, I did beat that game on stream, but I didn't platinum it. Oh wow, holy shit! I just realized we're getting close to the 3.5 hour mark. All right, guys, we'll do like a last call for any fan funding. We're sitting at 25 members. Corey dropped those 25 gifts. If you guys want to add anything to the member goal, feel free to do that. If you want to drop any gifts, become a member, or drop any more super chats or direct donations, any type of fan funding, we're gonna be streaming for another like 6.5 minutes or so. You skipped all but one of the zombie hordes. You just stood in a corner and mowed down the whole horde with a saw blade baseball bat. Nice. Fred, I don't think Mrs. MBG is here at the moment. I mean, yeah, the fact that they're making the hordes bigger in Days Gone, I think that's actually pretty exciting because they were already pretty big. And Meet the Cheater renews his membership. Meet the Cheater, thank you so much for that, man. That's for you, Meet the Cheater. I do appreciate that support, bud. That does bring us up to 26 on the day. Yeah, I mean, you guys know I'm only able to do what I do here because you guys make it possible. I am hoping to expand to a degree soon. People have been asking me to start reviewing games again, and I'm not going to make any promises because I don't know how everything's going to work out, but I am looking into trying to reach out to some publishers and maybe get my hands on some games a little bit early so I can review some stuff and talk to you guys about it, and I don't know if I'm going to do like full blown like video reviews. I mean, we'll definitely do review discussions on streams and stuff. But yeah, I'm just kind of, putting my feelers out there a little bit and seeing what we can make happen here. Cause, yeah, I don't know. It's just feels like I probably should have been doing this a while ago. Silent Hill 2 remake review. I technically did review that game. I didn't do like a video review on it, but while I was in the midst of playing it and platinuming it, I talked about it extensively. And that was my game of the year last year. That was a game I should have tried to see if I could have gotten a review code for or something, Even playing an hour or two of a new game and giving your thoughts would make a big difference. Yeah, I need to get back. I don't know. I feel nervous it's so weird. I don't know what happened. Like I used to have no issue just kind of free flowing and just giving my thoughts on games like in video format. I think this is where streaming has kind of messed me up a little bit where I think the reason it was so easy to do that back in the day was because I wasn't streaming. And so I had all these thoughts kind of bottled up. And when I went to go talk about it on our video recording, it just came out naturally. Whereas I feel like I stream so much now, I'm always talking about what I'm playing or talking deeply about games that I kind of feel like I say everything I need to say. And then the thought of like trying to, like, trying to put all those thoughts together in a more streamlined way, suddenly I'm like, oh no, I guess what I'm trying to say is I think streaming has changed the way I talk in videos. And I think that's why like a lot of my videos are just news videos and they're very, if not scripted, just like by the books. I'm not really going off the script, if you will, that much. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. If I have to start like scripting, I could try that. I've scripted a couple times in the past. I mean, like actually scripted, like word for word. Like I'm going to read a script. I've done that a couple of times. It's tough for me because I don't. It's very inefficient. That's the thing that drives me nuts about it. Is I'm like I'm just very inefficient with it. But I sound less depressed in my videos nowadays. That's what's funny, dude. I don't know. I listen back to some of my older stuff. I'm like, I sounded so depressed. I'm like, why? But people liked it. My opinion on South of Midnight. I think that's one game I'm not going to be playing. If it comes to PlayStation, I might, but even then, I'm not sure that I will. I'll be playing Indiana Jones, and I'll definitely give you my opinion on that. I'll be playing Forza. I'll give you my opinion on that. Well, you guys already know that I was planning on playing Forza. Um, I want to play Days Gone Remastered. I would like to play Doom. I want to play Lost Soul Aside. Tell Rockstar you need GTA 6 early. We need that review. Oh my god. Okay, so if I somehow got a review copy of GTA 6, I would feel like I made it. No, that's not going to happen, dude. I don't I mean Rockstar is going to be so careful about who they let review this game. Like you're going to have to sign probably like the most serious NDA of your life. Am I going to play The Last of Us complete? No. Unless, like, listen, dude, unless somebody from Sony, like a PR rep or whatever, is like, do you want a code for this? Talk about it. Be like, okay, I would do that, sure, but no, dude. Even then, I'd be like, I don't know, man. Don't make me do it again. Be like, please, God, no. You think South of Midnight's underrated? I heard it's pretty good. It just seems like it's not. I think it's just kind of slipping under the radar. They won't stop releasing The Last of Us. They won't stop making me play it. The box art's nice. Review over. Some of the visuals in South of Midnight are jaw dropping. I wonder if that game will make its way to PlayStation or not. It seems like a game that would do okay, maybe. Last of Us 2, the ultimate misery simulator. Misery Simulator 2025. You're just finishing up South of Midnight. Midnight's an okay game, very repetitive. Some things don't always work right. Well, Microsoft's about to drop some of their bigger games, and I'm curious to see how that goes down. I'm sure they have much higher expectations for games like Indiana Jones and Forza, you know, and then Doom next month. Doom's going to be an interesting one because Doom's that's not a port, you know, that's a new game, so I think that'll probably do pretty big for them. Um, After that, I guess, yeah, I guess there isn't anything else lined up for Microsoft, but that's probably because they are gonna have their showcase on June 8th, so they'll probably lay out another roadmap. Saying the combat's kind of dookie sometimes. Oh, okay. I see. We crossed the 3.5 hour mark. So, guys, I think this is going to be a good place to wrap up today's stream. I had a good time talking to you guys. Obviously, almost all of the topics we discussed were very front loaded for the first hour or two. Last hour or so, hour and a half, talking about other random things regarding gaming. But I had a good time today. We did a bonus stream yesterday, reacting to the marathon stream. Today we did a regular stream. I wasn't able to get a video out today. I think I'm gonna be gaming for the rest of the day. That's what I'm gonna be doing. And yeah, so guys, please enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I want to make sure to just give a big thank you to anybody who stopped by, hung out with me, and especially a big thank you to those who dropped direct support. Corey dropped a 25 bomb on you guys. Meet the Cheater, thank you for becoming a member. Anybody who dropped super chats, thank you guys so much. And anybody who dropped any direct donations, I'm only able to do what I do here because you guys make it possible. And again, I'm very thankful for that and very appreciative of the community that we have here. So also want to give a shout out to Devil Shooter. He will be back to doing the timestamps. I think there are going to be some days he might be a little bit late with the timestamps. I think Fridays and Tuesdays and Fridays, I believe he might be a little bit late with them, but either way, he's going to be getting them back up. So, you know, big shout out to Devil Shooter for that. And yeah, so guys, that wraps it up. Again, enjoy your Sunday. Well, we should be, so we'll see what happens tomorrow. I may or may not take a day off tomorrow. We'll have to see. So just be on the lookout. There may or may not be content tomorrow, but either way, you know, new week coming up, we'll have regularly scheduled content. And so please look forward to that. But all right, guys, I will catch you in the next one. Till then, take care, everyone. Oh, wait, hold on. Wow, that came at the dude. I literally was about to click end stream. We have Matt York, longtime member for 38 months. He says Helldivers 2 is fun. Got back into it again. Check it out again when you get the chance. I do still have it installed on my Pro. I might check. I did check it out not that long ago. I think it was like a month ago. And I was having some fun with it. But I was struggling to get like back into it on a deeper level. But I'll consider it. I'm sure they have future updates, like bigger updates that they're planning. And I'm sure, I have no doubt that there will be other things that get me back into Helldivers 2. But I'm glad to hear you're enjoying it, Matt. But all right, guys, that wraps up. That's for real this time. I will catch you guys in the next stream. So till then, take care, everyone.